Yeah. Like it. Make sure that's on
Okay, we all,
Hang on a second. What am I waiting for? There.
there. So we all set?
Okay, I think so. I hope so.
Okay. So welcome back, everybody, to our first meeting in person for the planning board. We do have one member who's, I believe, on his way, but we might as well get started with the pre-meeting.
You might like this, I mean, I don't need a table, since I'm an alternate, can I sit and share this, Melanie, are you gonna be
I'm fine with that.
projecting on the screen? Yeah, I can't see it all from here, so,
That's fine. Why don't we do that?
and Jim's really invading my space, you know? I didn't see this vaccination passport.
How do I wear face masks?
Okay. So Melena, maybe you can guide us down through the regular agenda.
I sure can. So the first item on our agenda is the City of Plattsburgh Harborside subdivision. This is in front of you guys for advisory review only because of local law P4 that was passed last year, excluding city projects from formal planning board and zoning board review. We're still going to conduct the seeker. Common Council will be lead agency for that. So this subdivision has been in the works for quite a while. Everybody's familiar with the Harborside area of Plattsburgh. That is the former MLD yard, the wharf, a vacant piece of property with some improvements, parking lot improvements, a public boat launch, Peace Point Park, and the city marina. So right now, the property is 3 separate lots, all owned by the city. The proposal is to subdivide the property into 3 new lots, just a reconfiguration of the existing property now, all still to be owned by the city. The city will retain ownership of the MLB lot, which will become Lot 1, Lot B, the work facility, and then all of the waterfront, all the way including Peace Point Park, the city marina. That will be Lot A, and then a new developable park property, Lot 2, which is about 7.7 acres. A lot of utilities on this site, a lot of easements will be required for any, development in the future. This is simply the subdivision at this point. There's no development identified. As you know, we put out an RFP for development of that parcel last year. We did get some interest, but nothing is set in stone yet. So this is just subdivision in preparation for future development. Oh, I forgot to mention as well, in addition to the 3 lots, we're also going to be extending Green Street, because right now Green Street is a public road, ends at the railroad tracks. This will just formalize Green Street becoming a public road beyond that, so that if there is any future development on Lot B, which is the former NLB yard, it will have public road frontage.
Lana, who owns that lower portion of Green Street right now?
It's a private road, owned and maintained by the city.
Okay.
So this will make it a public road so that development can occur in the future.
So does anyone need to be contacted?
No, the private road begins on the city property where the MLB yard is, so it's all city owned, but there's no private, access on it right now. I think the public is able to access it, but it's just called a private road.
I have a question.
Sure.
As long as you're going through the subdivision process, why don't you subdivide out the roadway now?
We are, that's one of the lots. It's included in the zoning table, maybe not this one I have in front of me, they did include it in the new zoning table on the new property map.
So are we to assume now that it's gonna be 4 lots?
Yes, Yep.
Okay, not 3.
Yep.
Okay.
I believe that's what the description is, Missouri, yeah, it's a 4-lot split merge subdivision.
So on, I'm sorry, are you done?
Yes.
On the maps that we have, can you describe their color, blue?
Yeah. Yep, I believe that one, yeah, that's the new map. So there's an existing property map and then a new proposed one. So this, the black and white map was very, very confusing. And we asked RMS to colorize it so that it was a little more clear. So that's the existing properties now. So the orange is the industrial district, which includes MLB Yard and the Wharf. There's the blue parcel, which is the parking lots for that vacant property. And then there's the Peace Point Parking Marina. The white part is the third lot. So those are 3 existing lots right now. And then the proposal is when you had it before, right? And the city will retain the orange and the green, and the blue will be open for development.
Do we have that, where we can see it?
It's in the PowerPoint, it was given to you as part of your packet.
I think I like only.
Yeah, the black and
my
white
computer
one,
around.
the black and white one is tough, which is why we had to colorize it.
I could tap my computer.
Oh, Shalice can pull it up on the
Please fill it
screen.
up.
Oh, awesome. Because going to 4, well, I'll wait until everybody can see it. 'Cause it's confusing.
No.
So, can you back up 1 slide, or 1 page in this, to page 2?
That's the proposed laws.
So this is proposed.
Yep, there's an existing colorized one as well.
So real quickly to Rick's point on that, the proposed,
So the colorized maps were not updated after we added the Green Street extension to the final plat. These were just for you guys, so they're a little bit easier to understand. Those colorized maps do not match the final plat.
Got it.
The
That's
the
why
black
I'm
and white
giving
one.
you.
I'm sorry, I should have said that before. We didn't ask RMS to do that because it would have been another step, more money, blah, blah, blah. And this is just for reference purposes only. But the final plat does include the extension of Green Street, which is the black and white one that is also in your packet.
Will it include a 66-foot wide street right of way?
I don't know about 66 feet. I think we're gonna get as much as we possibly can. We probably can get 66 feet there.
Well, I say that because that's
The
the,
minimum is 60.
that's the requirement when we impose it on the public.
Right, and this road is very interesting. I don't know the road width off the top of my head, but it's very, very narrow and barely fit two-way traffic as it is. So you're right, we should have a really good right of way so that improvements in the future can be completed.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Really out of there is a real
It's
adventure.
a nightmare, and that light is so confusing. Because the other light stays red on Bridge Street when you're turning right, and that light is green coming off of Bridge Street. It's tough. We've recommended a traffic study so that improvements can be done in the future, especially with the farmer's market down there and any other future development. I mean, as you guys know, we're doing the Harborside master plan, so this intersection absolutely needs to get improved.
So that's a good segue to a question I had about the subdivision. So I know that the master plan process is going, and
Yeah, it's tough, the overlap.
well, yeah, and there's a community advisory group, which I think is assisting the master plan.
Yep.
So, but this is happening on a parallel track, and I'm curious about the intersections between those processes.
Our first public advisory committee meeting is slated for the end of June. I'm thinking the city wants to complete this process around the same timeline. It's going to be a type 1 coordinated review, so that's going to take at least a month. So yes, you're absolutely right. We should send this to the advisory committee. It can be part of the discussion at the first town meeting. But I mean, either way, this is going to happen. You're right, it's parallel paths, but they should be formed, and we're keeping our consultants in the loop too with the subdivision. They have all these maps already. Just a lot of coordination. Another thing I wanted to point out with the subdivision as well is the parking. So obviously, there may be some concerns from the public that we're subdividing off all of our overflow parking at Harborside, which is the majority of that blue lot. I did a quick count, it's probably not exact, but after the subdivision, the city will still retain about 315 parking spaces between the farmer's market parking, a section of that blue lot the city will retain, I think it's about, I'm not gonna make up the number, actually I can, 62 spaces for overflow parking and also the public boat launch and marina parking. And then the city marina has 77 spaces. So it's a total of 315 that the city will retain down there even after development of that lot.
Glenn, is that 315 going to be included in the overall downtown?
It's
I
not,
realize it's separated.
Yeah, it's not included in the SAD counts, but we absolutely will use it for event overflow parking for any events at the marina, like fishing tournaments, et cetera, snow storage, but it's not counted in the SAD total.
Can you give us any update on where the conversations with hotel?
I honestly have not been part of those conversations. I think we've been in talks with Harbor, or Skyward, I'm sorry, Harbor, like, in talks with Skyward. There's no developer agreement signed yet. We haven't even seen a sketch plan at this point. I think they're still working like behind the scenes, trying to figure this all out and financing, et cetera. That's all I know.
And are the consultants on the Harborside Master Plan involved in that?
They are aware of it. They have a copy of the RFP that we put out. They're aware that we did have some interest from Skyward. So yes, they know that is impending. But as far as being part of the conversation, not yet. But when we did meet with Skyward, I don't know however many months ago that was, we did let them know that we do have a master plan pending for this site and that there needs to be close coordination, especially with like the conversation about public-private partnerships and allowing access to their site, allowing access to the public boat launch, the marina, et cetera. So they're very aware of that. And you guys know that that site plan will come in front of you and you'll have to do a very thorough review of that and you'll have a conversation about that as well.
So a couple of technical questions.
Yep.
I guess, on the Green Street and Dock Street, are we going to maintain the turnarounds for vehicle, for city vehicle access?
Yeah, yep. This map doesn't show it, but absolutely, when there is a site plan in front of you, we'll have an access easement that goes from Green Street through the works facility, through the parking lots, all the way out to Dock Street.
Okay, so they're gonna do it through access easement,
Yeah.
not a physical
No,
bounded right-of-way turnaround?
access easement.
Okay. Same thing, shared access easements across the parcel,
Yeah.
I'm assuming is gonna be maintained.
Because the access for the new developable parcel is not defined yet. They're not really sure if it'll be like Dock Street or create a new one, so that's not part of their subdivision. That'll be part of their site plan, separate from us.
Same thing with utility ownership and easements?
Yep.
Or is that gonna all be defined
Right, because it's the city
specifically?
subdivision, city property, we're retaining it now, there's no need for easements at this point until it's developed.
In this subdivision, have we identified overall what variances would be required if this were not city property?
Yeah, we had just put a note on the zoning table about which ones, and I believe the only variance we'd have to achieve would be the setbacks for the farmer's market building, which is 5 feet to the property line. I believe that's the only one.
Okay.
Yeah, this is an interesting site, half of it is industrial, half of it is RC1, and it's also in the waterfront overlay district, so there's just a lot of restrictions down here, which the developer of this property is gonna have to work through.
Just for clarification, it's the application of the property line that puts it out of zoning compliance. So the structure, although it exists, when you apply. the
Right, it's
property line-
pre-existing non-conforming, right, but we're creating a work situation with this change in property line, right, exactly.
Elena, has any, I've been down to the farmer's market a couple of times now, and, Green Street,
Yeah,
which is the access point, is a nightmare, because, there are multiple times, but every time I've been, there's traffic coming down, traffic going up, and pedestrians, and so pedestrians have to, like,
yeah,
climb up over the old railroad stuff. Has any consideration been given to, but again, if this gets developed, I don't know how it would work, but for access to be through Dock Street, and then one way on Dock Street, and then there's a road that loops around into the farmer's market, and then,
so the opposite of what we just said is going to be happening, I think this weekend or the following weekend. The community development office has been working on signage for Saturdays, and I believe it's only Saturdays, but not Wednesdays. So Green Street will become a one-way, we'll put a sandwich board at the end of the road that says watch for pedestrians, basically blocking off that left-hand lane, so that pedestrians and bicyclists can use that left-hand lane going into Green Street. It'll be a one-way Green Street, one way out of the farmer's market site, with signs pointing right turn only, which means you have to exit through the wharf and out to Dock Street. So it'll become a one-way loop on
there's
Saturdays.
really road there, it's just kind of.
Yeah, it's a.
I've driven it a bunch of times.
Yeah, I
But
believe
that's
DPW
okay,
is
the traffic
going
goes over it.
yeah, and DPW is going to be throwing down some gravel, I believe, to just improve it a little bit.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But once
It's
that
temporary.
gets developed,
Yeah, once it's developed, we'll come up with a better solution, but this is just a
okay,
temporary solution.
got it.
Did you say this would be coming back to us again for
seeker? or-
No, common council will be lead agency for seeker.
So that, I wasn't sure whether you have to have like a coordinated review or.
It will
they
be-
just go in there
It
all-
will be, I don't believe you guys will be an involved agency, I think you'll be an interested agency, so you'll probably maybe get a notice, but necessarily.
And because we're advisory only, we don't make a resolution or anything. We
We just
could
want
make a resolution if we wanted.
Yes, we just want your comments, give us all your feedback, and we'll incorporate it into the plan, if we miss something or something fun from obvious, yeah. We'll incorporate it. So if you think something later, email me.
And what's the process? Does this require 2 common council hearings or public, what's the?
Yeah, for the seeker review, yes, they'll declare lead agency and then it'll start the coordinated review, which is a 30-day process. So it'll be back in front of council again. And the public will have a chance to comment on it. Any more questions on this one? Okay, cool. All right, what's our next one? Ovalcraft, I see Jesse here.
Uh-huh.
No, not yet. This is just the pre-meeting. You don't need to speak yet. This is just like a little information session. All right, so Ovalcraft Brewing, this is a historic state review. It's a proposal for an addition, a 20 by 30 paver patio on the south end of Ovalcraft Brewing with a pergola. They required a number of variances and a special use permit. Special use permit for expansion of an eating and drinking facility in the RC2 district. That special use permit was achieved at the last week's zoning board meeting. It also required variances for front yard setbacks and side yard setbacks. Those were also achieved at the zoning board meeting. The only comments I really had for this one were in regards to the adjacent property access drive, which is IDEW. I just, requested some additional information in regards to people pulling into that driveway and, will they be parking next to the patio now because it's closer to the seating area? And just a general parking layout for this addition. I know there's a lot of people park across the street and in the rear of the building, but I just had some questions about parking on site now with this patio addition. Another comment about the roof pitch, the elevation drawings that were submitted were a little bit different than the rendering, so just some clarification on the actual roof pitch. And then how the pergola is going to be attached to the existing building. Additional information in regards to landscaping and lighting and any signage. SHPO did review this one because it is on the base. They provided a letter saying if there was no negative impacts. So SHPO review is completed. You guys have any questions on this one? It looks really cool in the rendering, so I have to say, I love that these are provided to us.
I just have to say, it's big improvement over
Yeah.
lawn chairs.
Yeah, a lot of people stay outside now, and it's great for
Yeah.
having, today's market, COVID. Question on this one? Yeah. All right. So next up is City Hall windows. So you guys are all familiar with this one. This project has been kicking around City Hall since 2016. The city received a DASNY grant in 2016 for $300,000 for replacement of all the City Hall windows. ADA conducted a feasibility study with looking at three different options: restoration, replacement of the windows on the frames. After conversations with SHPO, conversations with the planning board, it was decided to go with restoration of the windows. The city did a test window in the building inspector's office. It took about 3 to 6 months to complete that project. And it cost $14,000, and the product at the end was so-so. It opens a little wonky, it's still a little drafty, it's not that great. So we've been looking at other options, and we've reached out to you guys in SHPO to look at the option to replace the windows. with wood replica windows. This is an example here. This is not what the window will look like, but it is just showing us the quality of the window, which will be mahogany wood. They'll be painted to match the existing windows. It will have the same decorative OG love detail that these windows have here. We're looking at working with MQ Windows, who's a Canadian company that specializes in historic window preservation. I have an example in our PowerPoint I can show you of a building they did in Ottawa. It's super amazing. So we're starting that process. The average cost to replace the windows versus restoration is about $10,000. So it's a savings of about $180,000 to actually replace them with new windows versus restoring them, which is the real push here, right? We only have $300,000 from DASNY. We have a $250,000 grant from MLD. So I think we'll be able to cover replacing all 53 windows. We're going to leave the restored one downstairs. So we're going to replace that one. So I think with the grant money that we do have, we'll be able to replace all of them if we replace them versus restoration. We did coordinate with SHPO, of course, because it's a historic building. We have the DASNY grant. SHPO did an initial review, came back and requested some additional information, including side-by-side dimension comparison drawings of the existing and proposed windows. MQ provided that to us today, actually, so I already submitted that to Chris this afternoon. They also requested that the new windows contain the OG lugs, which are distinctive. The renderings that MQ put together included those OG lugs. And then number 3, they requested that we leave the test window in the building inspector's office, which we will, of course. So we've met all of their conditions. I submitted all of that today to SHPO. We don't have the final review letter yet, but it's in the works. We're just excited to finally spend this money. 5 years later.
Will these be painted when they come?
Yes, they'll already be painted. Yep, to
Both
match the
interior
existing
and
paint.
exterior?
Huh?
Both interior?
Yeah, both of
and
them.
exterior?
Yep. And the cost to replace all of these windows, I don't have this number right on top of me, but includes the manufacturing of them, the installation of them, and any abatement that's required, because there is lead-based paint in these windows, and there is some asbestos in the caulking.
Now, this study is based on US dollars.
Yes, yep.
So is there advantage with the company?
They're a subsidiary of Anderson Windows, so they do have a New York base here, so all of the work that they do will be utilizing their New York State contractors.
Melina, so we're not gonna get the new frames, right?
No, just new windows.
Okay, but what about, I mean, I'm looking right behind you, and the frame on the exterior, if they determine that the frame, I mean, that frame is pretty rough shape.
Pretty much it.
Yeah, so if the frame's not, you know, are they examining, have they looked at the reality that some of the frames are not really.
Yeah. AEDA did, in the feasibility study, look at the condition of the frames on the windows, and they put together the chart, it's in the report. But when MQ comes, they actually, before they manufacture anything, they come and they actually inspect everything, and they make a list and let you know what is to be required. So they'll take a look at it. It's not too much of an additional cost.
Melina, was this ever heard by the planning board in 2016?
It was, yep. And it was approved by the planning board for restoration, which is why it's back in front of you, because we're now asking to replace the windows, not restore them.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I remember 2 issues from 2016 that the planning board had, and I don't, some of you were here, Jim.
Yeah, one of them right off the top is being into AEDA, working with the project. I recused myself in 2016 and will do so again tonight. So, whatever the board.
Right, okay.
Questions
So the two main points that I remember leading us to that decision were, one, that there was a name, and I don't remember it, for this ripple glass that was the way glass was created. What's that? Bevel. So, and you can see that it has like these little ripples in it, and some of the other windows you can see even more. And that was like a real artifact of the time when they were created, and that should try to be retained. And then the other, so the planning board at that time felt like that was something we should try to keep, whether or not we replace these windows or restore them, to try to keep that whole look was important. And the other thing that was important to the planning board then in 2016 was that we, on lots of other reviews, we had required applicants to restore windows on the oval and to use like materials and so on. We felt like we needed to maintain some precedence for that at City Hall, especially.
To your first point, I've heard that the restored window of the building inspector's office, almost every single piece of glass had to be replaced. It was quite the process to get that out, so it's not the original glass anyway. And it's cost, that's really the bottom line. I mean, and we are proposing a almost like for like replica of the window. It's wood material, it'll be painted the same, it'll have the same number of panes, et cetera.
So I just wanted to put that out there for what the board, and the rationale for the decision.
Can you show me exactly what's being replaced, just point it out to make certain I understand?
Yeah, just this physical window, that's it.
And what about Loretta's question
So
back
the
to?
frame question, yeah. Shane, or Mike is actually coming tonight from ADA, and he can speak to that a little bit more than I can, as far as what he suggests, because he was part of the original feasibility study, so he might have a better idea of how many frames of these windows actually do need to be replaced or need some sort of restoration. But yeah, you're right, they look pretty rough.
I mean, this thing is long overdue. I think we all
Yeah,
agree
yeah.
on that, but we all want it done correctly.
Correctly, I
I
agree.
mean, this building is just, fantastic. And I think we've got to take care of it, not only for our generation, but we got to find a way to sustain it. So I
Absolutely.
definitely don't want to do this on the cheap.
Yep, I agree.
And I just think it's important that whatever decision we make, that we really clearly articulate the rationale, because we have, if we make a decision to go with replacements, that's different than what we've asked other people in the community to do. So we really need to be clear about why. And then be ready for what happens the next time window replacements come in on the oval or somewhere as well. So I just think we need to articulate our rationale there as well.
Yeah, we have changed our stance on the base.
With vinyl window.
Yeah, they're doing vinyl window
On those
replacements
two that
now.
we recently heard, yeah.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
in fact,
Yeah.
there is precedent
Yeah.
by this board.
And these are
for-
wood windows, not vinyl.
Yeah, and these are
Right,
wood.
right.
Elena, this does not include doing anything with the doors. is that
No, this is just windows.
And in 1988, I started working in this building, and I saw a lot of retrofit kind of proposals, and some even went into action. One of them was stationary panes where you can still see the window. Well, the problems with the stationary panes is that there are no alternatives to ventilation.
Right.
So having movable windows that you can still maintain ventilation is a very important issue, especially in a place of assembly.
Absolutely. You should see Sylvia's office. She actually has plastic over her whole window because it's so drafty and awful in the winter.
Yeah,
But yeah, so they need to be replaced. We all know that.
I used to have snow come in
Oh,
my
But
office.
there's plenty of ventilation.
Yeah, yeah.
Not an issue.
The other thing is energy efficiency,
Yep.
that, a building that was constructed in the 1800s, to maintain building codes, I think, having an engineering firm that is here as advisors, can show you the cost benefit
Yep.
of, what the R values are going to be, or heat loss values of
That was it.
single.
it's in the feasibility study. I did take a look at that.
I
Yep.
think I saw that.
Yeah, I read it's in there, yep, and also, in the summer, there is air conditioning, right? Yeah, so I'm the savings in the air conditioning bill, I mean,
Yeah,
it's going to be huge.
yeah.
And I
I
thought
mean,
about my house, we replaced the windows, and in 1 year, the next winter, our heating bill was 1/3.
I didn't,
1/3, just.
I didn't
from-
see it monetized, so if it's
Yeah,
there.
okay, so towards the end, I saw that they had done with.
So
It
I
shows.
think it's a big feature.
It's huge.
Typically, we look at energy conservation in the scheme of the project, all projects. This is a savings versus, what would the cost be otherwise?
Right.
And I think there's a lot of merit to this project. And the alternatives just don't work in a building of assembly.
It is 6:01. Okay.
Okay, so it's 6:01, so we'll start the regular meeting. I believe we continue on, we're already at the recording.
We are already.
Okay. I will call the meeting to order for the City of Plattsburgh Planning Board, Wednesday, December 26, 2021. Welcome everybody back to the in-person meeting for over a year. Okay. Everybody's happy to be back, I know I am. Welcome. I guess we do have, we can actually stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And can I please have a roll call?
Jim Arbella,
Here.
Derek Rosenbaum,
Here.
Rick Perry,
Present.
Rich Carter,
Here,
Kurt Burbidge.
Yes.
Lori Reed.
Present.
Thank you. And to start, I believe we do have a change in our makeup of our planning board. We did have a recent resignation, Marissa Gilbert. We do have a resolution of appreciation. Shalice, we can read that into the minutes.
Resolution 2021-A, expressing appreciation and gratitude to Marissa Gilbert for exemplary service as a member of the planning board of the city of Plattsburgh. Whereas Marissa Gilbert has served with distinction as a member of the planning board of the city of Plattsburgh since 2015 and has retired from service as of May 2021. And whereas during her tenure as vice chairman of the planning board, Ms. Gilbert displayed able leadership and guidance in this role. And whereas Ms. Gilbert has given generously of her time and efforts in a dignified, faithful, and professional manner, and through her service has made outstanding contributions to the welfare, safety, and quality of life in the city of Plattsburgh and to the preservation of its natural and historic resources. And whereas Ms. Gilbert has earned the respect of colleagues in the city of Plattsburgh, now therefore be it resolved that the planning board of the city of Plattsburgh thanks Marissa Gilbert for her years of service and expresses its appreciation and gratitude for her exemplary service and many contributions to the city of Plattsburgh and its residents. And further be it resolved that the planning board decrees that Marissa Gilbert be furnished a copy of this resolution, which is included within the minutes of the May 26, 2021 City of Plattsburgh Planning Board meeting.
Thank you. And to add to that a little bit, I believe Marissa is, one of our longest serving board members of any board in the city at the moment. She was on the zoning board since the mid-90s,
Yeah.
before coming to the planning board, so. Definitely to show great appreciation, definite appreciation for her. I'd like to make that motion.
I'd like to co-motion with you. And I say that because Marissa was recommended to the zoning board in the 90s by myself. And she served with distinction. And although we didn't always agree, I can say that she served with the best interests of this community. And I don't think you can ask any more of any volunteer. And if you don't mind, I'd gladly join you in making the motion.
Okay, so motion by myself and Rick, go a second.
I'll second it, but I'd like to offer an amendment.
Okay.
In the third whereas, it says, whereas Ms. Gilbert has given generously of her time and effort in a dignified, I would like to amend that to read, whereas Ms. Gilbert has given generously of her time, effort, and sense of humor in a dignified, faithful, and honest, willing way, because while we have all learned a lot from her, her sense of humor, I think, really brought a lot of levity to the sport. And so if anyone will join me on that amendment.
I'd agree with that amendment as well. Thank do we still have a second out, Bruce Walker?
Yeah, I will second it with the amendment as well.
Okay, roll call.
Jim Rosella,
Yes.
Derek Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Rick Perry,
Yes.
Brett Carter,
Yes.
Kurt Busch.
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on to our regularly scheduled agenda. So we do have a request from the city. I believe we would be moving project item number 1 and number 3 so that we hear actually the city window project first, and we'll move the Harborside project to the third project in the agenda. If that's acceptable for the board. Any comments? If not, then we'll forward with that.
Okay, so item number 3/1, this is planning board item number 2021-09, City Hall window replacement and historic site review. This is a request to replace 53 existing wood windows with new replica wood windows in historic City Hall. Chippewa review required. Located at 41 City Hall Place, Zone C, tax map parcel ID number 207.19-2-12. Applicant is City of Plattsburgh, the plan preparer is ADA. Okay, so this is just an overview map. Of course, we all know where City Hall is because we are there right now. But just for the public record, I added this slide in the corner of City Hall Place and Columbia Street. And here's a zoning map showing the property in the Central Business District. And our historic overlay map showing the property is a registered historic site. And this is the Chris nomination form, the original one for City Hall. I can't really read it from here, but I wanted to call this out. I love the last line. It says it's an architectural style, well suited for government architecture. Says it embodies a feeling of order, solidarity, and strength. I love that line. I had to call that out. Thank you. So as I said, because City Hall is a registered historic site, we did have to coordinate with SHPO for any physical alterations to the exterior of the building. We submitted this project to SHPO. They did provide an initial review letter. They are requesting some additional information from us, including a side-by-side dimension comparison drawing of the existing and the proposed windows. They've requested that the OG lugs, which is like that little decorative piece on the windowsill, remain in the replica windows. In addition, they're recommending that the window that was restored as the test window remain in place as well. So I received a side-by-side dimension drawing from MQ Windows, who will be the vendor for this project, earlier today. I did submit that to Chris for formal review, and they also responded to number 2 and 3. So for number 2, the replica windows will include the OG lugs. And then number 3, the restoration window in the building inspector's office will remain in place. So this has been responded to. We have not obviously received a formal response from SHPO yet, but the city has responded. And here is City Hall. Look how beautiful it is. I included this image in here. This is from the summary report that was provided to you about the project. So a feasibility study was conducted back in 2016 when the city received a DASNY grant for the replacement of City Hall windows. AEDA looked at 3 different options. Option 1 was restoration of the windows. Option 2 was replacement of the windows. Option number 3 was replacement of the windows and frames. Originally, the planning board in SHPO approved option 1, which was restoration, but due to cost after doing the test window, it came out to about $14,000, which when we spoke with the JFP, I believe it is, they said that's on the low end. They would not be able to do that for all 53 windows. It would be between $14,000 and $24,000. So the cost is a little bit prohibitive. It took about 6 months to do the one window, and the window itself, the product quality was not as expected. Like I said, when they did the test window, a lot of the glass had to be replaced, a lot of the wood had to be replaced. So in reality, it's not really the original window anymore. So now we're going with option 2, which is replacement of the windows. At least we're proposing that. This is just a floor plan layout that was in the feasibility study. I just thought I'd throw it in here in case anyone wanted to speak to it, just showing where all the existing windows are now. Again, just the floor plan layout. to show that there has been some background work. I know you guys probably had a chance to go through the feasibility study. So this was an original assessment that AEDA did, looking at the condition of the existing windows. As you can see, almost all of them are rated poor. The glass and the frames were rated between poor and good. So to speak to what Rich spoke about earlier in the frames, they have been looked at, but that was in 2016. So when MQ Windows comes in here, they will do another assessment. This is the window in the building inspector's office that was restored. This is a really terrible photo. I can see that now that it's very dark. It looks much nicer in person. And then I walked around City Hall and I took some pictures of existing windows. And I highlighted on this one so you guys can see what that OG log looks like. It's just that little decorative piece on the corner. And it's on the interior and the exterior window. Some existing conditions, I believe this is also the building inspector's office. You can see the poor condition that they're in, they're kind of being undertaken by vines in that one. A lot of them are cracked. My upstairs looks like I had a bullet hole through it. I don't know what it's from. Okay, so this is a quote that we received from MQ Windows, who is probably will be our sole source provider. They quoted the replacement of the windows, including installation, at $490,000. As I said earlier, the city received a $300,000 DASNY grant in 2016, and we also have $250,000 from MLB to cover the cost. This was a spec sheet that MQ provided of the T216 window, which is the window up there underneath the screen. It is a wood window made out of mahogany, and it will be painted to match the existing windows. And this is a spec sheet that they provided showing the number of windows and the different sizes throughout City Hall. And as I said, SHPO requested a side-by-side comparison, and that's what this is in front of you here, which was submitted to SHPO today. And I can't speak to all of these details of the windows because that's why I'm late this year. Do you guys have any questions about any of the details? Oh, and I put this photo in here too. This is an example of a project that MQ did in Ottawa. They're a Canadian company, but they're a subsidiary of Andersen Windows, so they do have a New York base, so that's probably who will be doing work here. But anyway, I thought this was just a really cool photo of a project they did in Ottawa. So they specialize in historic window replacement. And then Seeker. So for this project, because it is historic, I looked at the type 1 action, looked at being a type 1 action, but a type 1 action is only triggered if 25% of any of the threshold established in the type 1 action is hit. So this one is city, town, or village having a population of 150,000 persons or less, a facility with more than 100,000 square feet of gross floor area would trigger a type 1 action. But because it's historic, only 25% of that threshold has to be met, which means if the building was 25,000 square feet, it would be a type 1 action. City Hall is 24,961 feet. So we can get away with not doing a type 1 action. This will be an unlisted action. And I confirmed that with council. It's very, very close. That's all I have, so I'd like to open it up to the mayor for comments.
I don't know why I get nervous doing these things. As you all probably already reviewed, this project has been before this board before, and essentially what we're asking is to give us a preliminary approval pending SHPO. But as outlined, the product is the same. It's a wood product. I'd be happy to show you the previous window that was installed. It's just right downstairs. But if you all have any questions, we'd be happy. So the project is funded partially through a DASNY grant that's been sitting unused until now. And part of it is through IEP money, which is contributed by ratepayers to help with efficiency projects like this. From a broader perspective, in City Hall, again, throughout the city, other city facilities, this is one project that is contributing to the overall efficiency, energy efficiency in City Hall. One is replacement of LED bulbs in City Hall. This is part of it. This window replacement is part of that whole package of energy efficiency, as well as a number of HVAC improvements, HVAC improvements that we're doing on the second floor here, which will expand to this room, the office next door, and then the offices downstairs as well. So it's a more of a comprehensive package that we're doing, in addition to those. Questions, comments?
Did the condition matrix include the frames?
It did, yes, and I can go back to that. I believe all of them were rated 4 to good,
And when was that from?
2016. Yeah, it was a while ago. Yeah. Like I said, I think, AEPA will come in here, and so we'll MQ and do another assessment.
Do you have better with age?
Sure.
Yeah, but what's going on in the land to do this?
It's a doozy, they're all doozies, long overdue.
This affects the, how well the weights work, is that correct? If you
Yes, we-
raise and lower the window?
Yes, and the new
And
ones
they're
will
all in
not
poor
have that.
condition?
What's that?
And they're all in poor condition?
Yes.
So we're looking at a situation where we have new windows, but because of the old frames, we still have difficulty raising and lowering the windows, if I understand this.
No, it'll be a different operating system to open and close the windows.
Okay.
So what we see is essentially an insert that will go into, the frame will stay, but that will be inserted into the frame.
Yes. That's my understanding.
What is the frame?
Hmm,
What is the frame?
wood.
No, but I mean, what is it? Which part of the window is the frame, I'm saying?
Oh, that's, yeah, that's.
Right, like this existing part,
Inside and
like
outside?
this. And then-
But basically, we're replacing the sash.
Yes,
That's it.
right, Mike? He's like,
Yeah, I'm just looking at the construction details. Right, so the entire functioning member of the window will be replaced. The encasement around it in the opening will stay. This proposal from MQ does not involve like tearing out into the wall and replacing any of the outside of the window frame.
So the track, and then just the,
The head jam and the sill and the side jams will all be completely replaced.
So Mike, when I look at that replacement and think of it as being inserted, there's like a lot of material on the outside of this that leads me to believe that overall the window size is getting reduced by a little bit. Are there parts of this replacement that we see that are like,
I
just to
wouldn't,
keep it standing up?
that's not an exact replica.
Okay,
That's just
so-
like their example window they bring around when they,
Okay.
do their sales pitch.
We're only getting the parts that go up and down, right? Is that
Correct.
The frame is just to hold that sample in place so we can look at it.
the jams are the stops that are basically up against the rail. There you go.
Yeah, so like if we look at this window behind the lane. So this entire wood section would be removed, including down below to where the outside sill is. This entire frame on the side with the track will be removed. So essentially, the new window would start at this horizontal surface, which on the outside actually steps out to the stone block exterior.
So this part would be replaced as well, like the shipping container?
Yes, absolutely. All that's part of
There you
the
go.
side frames. So like if we look at the details here. So here's the side. So this wood here that we see is 2 3/16 of an inch in. If we look at it from the stone on the outside, that's probably roughly equivalent to how wide this is right there. So we're not really enclosing further in with less glass. I think that's kind of what you.
I meant this part, are we getting like,
No, I think they're specs
Is
are
that-
nearer.
Yeah, so
okay.
they're not really dimensions to that either. Let me see. Sections. Yeah, they're dimensional.
It's not that important to me, it just looked like that has a lot of like.
Yeah, no, it would look like that.
Right, and so that's, yeah, all that casing on the outside is meant to like be your trim. Right, these windows aren't trimmed with casing because we're inset within the stone on the exterior.
Okay.
So really, it's gonna span, it's gonna be quite similar in width and appearance. Yeah, that looks more like what your house.
Mhm.
Now, are there blinds built into these, that like on?
And that one there is, but not in the ones that we're getting.
Okay. And that, the design that's on there is not gonna be the same, because we're matching exactly.
No, they'll be basically exact replicas.
No, you should completely ignore this project.
Yeah, I know, it's why I wanted to hear.
Don't look at this at all, this is not it, right?
Bad
This is
idea.
just a sample of what this contains. Yeah, don't, don't.
Just don't look at the one sample they gave us.
Exactly.
Well, I didn't finish today, but I was trying to figure out windows, and yeah, it looks like your windows are gonna be that big when it's done, and in fact, they really do match like for like, within the existing frame, it's quite remarkable.
So in the big picture, dimensionally speaking, they're gonna be very similar to what they are. The major differences will be, they'll be double pane with argon insulation, or not argon insulation, argon gas in between, which provides a high level of insulation, especially compared to the single pane glass that there is now. But almost more importantly, they have a low E coating, which is what reflects the sunlight and keeps the air conditioning bills way down. So those are really going to be the major fundamental differences between these windows and what's proposed by the restoration company, or the replication company, I should say. And those are things that you cannot get through the restoration process, which we tried previously.
Everybody agrees that it really makes sense to retain a restored window? Or is that an accommodation for people?
The restored window downstairs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting the sense nobody.
No, I mean, like, I think it's part of the simple requirement, and obviously we'll follow those guidelines as well, or retain that window.
And we paid $14,000 for it, we might as well keep it. We could put a plaque out there that says original City Hall window, I don't know.
And if you haven't, like, really, if you haven't seen it, we'd be happy to show it to you, the replaced window.
Yeah, I look at the replacement window as absolutely the best alternative. It's, you know, going to be in a pristine condition for many years. It's going to be energy efficient. It's going to be extremely similar. Yeah, it may not be the same wood, but do we know that this is the original wood? I have to think not. Just because of the overall size, the difficulty in maintaining them. I think the alternative of replacement windows is in the best interest of the community.
So I just think it's important because in the past, we have required we've required private applicants to replace old windows with either exact replicas or restore, right? And we're diverging a little bit from that, and I think that we want to be really clear about why we're doing it. So I've thought of 5 reasons that make this, like, that would set the difference here. So one is that we're using like materials, right? The new windows are going to be wood, so we're replacing wood with wood, which is something we've required of other applicants. The second would be that the city PMLD is providing a good percentage of the funding for this through the Independent Energy Efficiency Program.
About half, a little bit less than half of the funding, correct?
That otherwise, if we didn't have, and we went with the restored windows or the replacement, we would be asking taxpayers to foot the bill. But that's money that the residents and businesses have already put into the energy, into this fund. It's also part of an overall energy retrofit plan, which is important. And the cost savings to the taxpayer once the retrofit is completed, is also releasing it. And like Loretta says, we have now in the past couple of meetings diverged from that precedent of requiring like materials in all cases, in all historic buildings. And so it seems like we've broken that precedent that we had before.
Yeah, I mean, we just did, Aaron Ovis's building, and that was almost purely based on the cost,
On the cost.
the cost difference.
The other thing is the interior environmental health. You know, we have windows that have lead-based paint.
Yes.
And in a place of assembly, it shouldn't exist.
Right.
Especially in a government facility.
Actually, Rick, it's not only lead-based, but I believe there's also asbestos.
Oh, probably.
This is accurate.
So the proposal we have also includes full abatement prior to demolition. So as part of this, you know, each window will be abated and disposed of properly, and then the new window will be put in place.
And that's still cheaper than the restoration cost.
Because any restoration also needs to accommodate for asbestos abatement and lead paint abatement. So it's, as Rick pointed out, it's an indoor air quality improvement across the board.
So just on SHPO, they said in 2016 to restore, not replace. And then they've requested currently additional information.
Correct.
So we're just waiting to hear back from them.
We are, so the city's requesting conditional approval tonight, pending SHPO, final SHPO approval.
So I read what they wrote, but refresh my memory, they said,
There are three things that they wanted, the OG lugs, which are the decorative kind of corners. They wanted to retain this window in the back, and then they also wanted a side-by-side comparison of the designs back of the original versus the replacement.
okay. So we don't really know which way it's gonna go, or does it seem like it's leaning?
All of that has been submitted to SHPO as of today, so we're just waiting for a final response. And I mean, the fact that they're requesting additional documentation and requiring that we keep the one test window means they're probably leaning toward the approval.
Like, just for the record, when you assess a window like what's in here, do you think that this window meets today's building code standards in any way?
I mean, no.
That's what I thought.
Simple answer would be no.
We spoke a little bit earlier about the, for lack of a better term, I'll say old glass versus new glass. Apart from that, with the coatings that we talked about, there's really going to be no difference in what the glass looks like if somebody's just walking by.
Correct. So the coating I mentioned is completely clear. It's not like it would have any reflectivity or any, you know, sheen or tint, color to it. It's simply, any modern day window has it. There's different versions of it in terms of how effective it is in blocking the UV from coming in. But any code compliant window has a low E coating nowadays, but it's not colored, it's not mirrored, it's not any tinted. So it won't look the same. It will look similar in that it's just a clear glazing. Now, I know in the restoration attempt that we did, you know, even replacing the panes that needed to be replaced, in restoration, you're not gonna get the same exact glass with the same exact seating or waviness or anything with the historic type of materials. So, you know, I think we gave it the college try with the last window, and it just wasn't in the city's benefit to keep pursuing that route.
Thank you.
Mike?
When you talk about that glaze, does it also, when it's keeping the UV rays out, is that a health benefit for people in the building in terms of exposure?
Right, I suppose if your desk was right
Yeah.
adjacent to a window, having some UV being blocked, sure, absolutely. it would.
Yeah, okay, well, that's good to know.
Mike, are the grills gonna be, between the paint, or are they gonna be exterior the way it is now?
That's a good question. Let's look at the detail.
I didn't see it on there, but.
So the wood, so it's a single glass panel. The wood mullions, I believe they're called, or sorry, muntins is what they call them. They're just applied to the outside of the glass. And then there's a support inside the glass. It's on page D2.
Are they're fixed, they're not removable?
Right, I believe they're here too.
Okay. So that structure, will have the same look as what there is now.
Right. And actually that, for as far as the R value or the U value with its thermal properties is a huge advantage to have that continuous glass rather than a piece of wood that would conduct.
Right. Yep. Thank you.
I apologize if this has already been answered, but I guess I'm coming back to these frames in the matrix. And the majority of the frames being in poor condition, and we're not replacing the frames. I mean, I'm very much in favor of doing this. But what's the consequence of not replacing those frames if they're all in poor condition?
I guess I didn't do this first evaluation, so I'm not sure what qualified as the frames. I'm trying to find that.
Right, so Mike said, the exterior trim that you can see here abutting the stone will be replaced.
Any peeling paint on the frame that's staying, will that be taken care of by MQ?
I believe so, yes, I'd have to look back at their proposal, but I believe so, yes.
And you obviously have a provision in the contract that any deterioration or rot will be replaced.
Yeah, and the city is budgeting additional funding for any like that.
So is that the answer as it relates to the frames? There's additional funding to repair the
We
frames?
will budget additional funding, correct? And I don't know, I can't speak to which frames need replacement and which ones don't, I'm not sure. Like I said, I think they're gonna have to come back and give a second assessment because it's 2016.
So as I'm reading our original assessment, I believe the option of leaving the frames was simply just replacing the window panels themselves. With this replacement window, it will be removal of the frames and complete replacement of the frames.
But not going into the wall.
Well, you're not tearing out the wall, but I don't think those windows are built into the wall. You see, the frame itself is what's attached to the stone on the exterior.
Right.
And then on the interior, it's against this board. So this is the frame right here, with the counterweight and with the track, and with this material piece of wood, all that's being ripped out.
Like just,
So the frames are being fully replaced.
I was just looking at the analysis, and was looking at pages 13, 14, and 15,
Yep.
where they outline the three options and pros and cons. And just looking at the titles, option one, as I understand, is restoration. Two is replacement, but maintain existing frames, which I'm not clear on what the frames are at this point. And option three is replacement window and frame. And I understand we're going with two, which based on this analysis maintains existing frame, if I understand it correctly.
What was the direction that made you believe we're going with option two?
Maybe, that may have been my misunderstanding, that's what I thought I heard earlier.
Yeah, and that's what I read also, that.
Thank you.
Was that in the application?
I read through it, it says that option two, just replacing the window, not replacing the frames.
I see on the front page of the application, it states level 1, level 2, level 3. I assume that means you're talking about the building floors. I don't know if that's what. But the details that MQ provided
Include the frame.
include the frame. Yes, because the frame is what houses that hanging counterweight, and that's all to be removed. That's obsolete.
Anyway, so right here is the proposal from MQ outlining their scope of work.
Like, is there a provision in there to insulate the cavity that the counterweight sits in? It's just a void space.
Right,
And obviously, it's not energy efficient as it is.
right.
I think it would be beneficial to at least explore insulating that area. Otherwise, you're still gonna have a void space.
Right. No, I agree. I think that would be a wise thing during the construction process after the removal of the existing window frame to fill that cavity.
It would also offer more support for the frame in there as well. And
Depends what they're measuring. I mean, if they're measuring from stone to stone on each side,
Mhm.
then that's gonna be about right up against that, it should account for everything.
Yeah, these counterweights are typically about a foot high and probably
Oh,
2-inch diameter.
down
It's,
below,
they go right in the cavity on the inside here.
Yeah.
You ever see the
Yeah.
rope that is hinged
Mhm.
in the frame?
Yeah.
That's what it's working, it's holding the counterweight.
They're lead weights, right?
oh, yeah.
So I guess, Rick, here, I'll read you the scope of installation from MQ. So what's included is job site visit, planning, and validation of fabrication dimensions. So they will come on site, measure all the rough openings, and prepare the shop drawings according to their own measurements. Reception of new units on job site, removal of existing units, dumpster and carting fees of removal of old windows. And if we proceed with the abatement, it would also, of course, cover all of the abatement costs. Installation of new units, supply and application of shims, baccarat, insulation, and sealant caulking. So that would probably, we can verify with them, but I would think that the insulation would be covered by that. Manufacture and installation of basic copper pans. So that's probably on the sill flashing. And maybe the head flashing, I'm not sure exactly. Excluded are alterations to masonry openings, supply, installation, or modification to bucking rough openings. All rough openings must be deemed correct prior to commencement of work. Supply and application of waterproofing membrane on any part of masonry opening, rough opening, or installed bucks. Installation of security wires, interior finish trim, installation of exterior brick mold, finish caulking, water testing, alterations or adjustments to units, installation of additional units or additional scope of work not included under project scope, covering to protect units after installation, permitting and handling of inspections, and removal, clearing, or handling of environmental weather conditions, i.e. snow. Now, the abatement proposal pretty much covers all the standard abatement work. What the city would be responsible for above and beyond this is the air monitoring and the testing throughout the abatement project. But it does appear to include the insulation.
How long will this take to replace those windows?
The lead time for manufacturing of the windows is about 5 months. Installation, I'm not sure. Mike, do you have any idea how long it would take to install the window?
This does not say in the proposal. But in the comparison of the restoration project that took several months, I would think from, a room, say they were in this room, they would probably have all of the windows replaced in this room within a matter of days, not weeks or months.
Yeah, our timeline is quite tricky. If this project is approved tonight and we move forward with MQ windows, by the time we can order them, we're looking at the end of June probably, 5 months lead time. We're looking at maybe November by the time we have the windows, so we don't have a lot of time to install them before winter comes.
Yeah.
So we confirm that the replacement includes the frame,
Yes.
okay?
So I'll make a motion on the seeker, right? We can at least knock one item out. Oh, is that okay? Oh.
So, real quickly, for discussion in the pre-meeting, I need to recuse myself from this project because AEDA represents our ownership of AEDA. With that said, we normally would move musical chairs and everything, but given the COVID rules, I haven't, but Loretta would be acting member, and they're take over his chair. Okay.
So yes, there's a public hearing, which we typically do first, right, before speaking. So I don't have a gavel, but I will open the public hearing. Oh, there's a gavel. Public hearing open.
We do have Zoom running and we're allowing people to participate via Zoom.
All right. Is there anyone here that would like to speak? And Shalice, is there anyone online?
Nobody is currently raising their hands, there may be a small YouTube delay.
Give it a few minutes, or a few seconds.
We have only one attendee that I'm not recognizing as an applicant. Still no hands.
Okay, so with no comment, we'll close the public hearing. Go ahead.
Well, so I'll make a motion on the seeker, motion to adopt seeker resolution 2021-09A, declare the project an unlisted action and complete seeker part 2 with a negative declaration of no significant environmental impact.
I'll second the motion.
Second by Rick. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Jared Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Rick Perry,
Yes.
Greg Hurd,
Yes.
Brett Rivers,
Yes.
Loretta Reason.
Yes.
Okay, seeker motion passes. So then, is there any more discussion on the scope of the project itself? So if not, then I guess we have the ability to vote on this tonight as far as approving it or denying it. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2021-9B to approve the historic site review application and related materials and conditions as noted within today's discussion.
Can we, before we vote, just ask, would you be willing to amend based on the uniqueness and conditions that Kurt had described so that we're not deviating from our standard, but rather we're refining areas that need to be addressed?
Can you cite the conditions you want noted in the discussion?
And do we need a second before we discuss?
I requested an amendment that Reg is open to.
Yeah.
I don't,
Doesn't matter. I don't know.
Parliament.
Would that be noted by, the phrase noted within the discussion?
right, I was just gonna say, we can add those comments to the discussion part of the resolution, there's no need to really amend your.
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate.
So then do we,
Well, no, I would offer an amendment that the that any conditions language should be and approval for SHPO. Because that's still
That's
exists.
fine.
So it'd be motion to adopt resolution 2021-9B to approve this work site review application and related materials with any conditions and pending approval from SHPO as noted in the discussion.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution 2021-9B to approve the historic site review application and related materials, with any conditions, including review by TIPO as noted within the discussion.
I'll second the motion. Second by Rick. Any further discussion? And I think just to kind of not elaborate, but accentuate what occurs, I think 5 points you pointed out were important. I think one is obviously cost, that's a huge factor, and we have numbers to show the difference between the two. And just, what were the other things real quick?
So the cost, and I think it's important because if not covered by IEP, it's gonna be covered by the taxpayers, so.
Right.
Funding source.
Yeah, so that's really important. It's part of a larger energy conservation kind of retrofit the building. We are replacing with light material. It is wood with wood, it's wood with wood. And,
You mentioned efficiency.
yeah, and the cost savings in the end, not only is it being funded by the city through IEP and PMLP, but the cost savings in the end also are cost savings on that. So that's
The other one I think was, that I was thinking of was vinyl, so to replace, right, that's about as close as you can get to replacing like, short of doing what they did with the window downstairs, which obviously didn't come out that great, so, okay.
which is a great point, right? We tested restoration and
That's a great way to test it.
yeah.
Okay, I think that covered it, so roll call.
Rick Perry,
Yes.
Brett Carter,
Yes.
Kurt Rivers,
Yes.
Jared Rosenbaum.
Yes.
Lori.
Yeah,
Motion passed. Okay,
Thank you for your patience.
No.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
oh, it's been great.
Okay, moving on to
Thank you.
I'm gonna have,
moving to planning board item,
you back? You got this?
planning board item 2021-10, Oakville Craft Brewing Historic Site Review. Lisa, summary.
We're getting there, there we go. Here we go. Okay, item number 2 tonight, planning board item number 2021-10, Oval Craft Room Historic Site Review. This is a request to construct a 20 by 30 paver patio with a pergola roof with an 18-inch brick wall in the expanded Oval Historic District located at 111 Ohio Avenue. SHPO coordination required, zone RC2, tax map parcel ID number 221.16-1-17.5. The applicant is Jesse Joliker and the plan preparer is Jesse. Okay, so here's an overview of the site. This is at 111 Ohio Avenue on the corner of Ohio and US Oval. Here's our zoning map showing the property in the RC2 district. So for this project, Jesse was required to get a number of variances and a special use permit from the zoning board. He was required to get a special use permit for expansion of a drinking eating establishment in the RC2 district, and also area variances for lot coverage deficiency and front and side yard setbacks. Those variances were achieved at the zoning board meeting last week, and especially from as well. Here's our historic overlay map showing the property is in the Oval Historic District, which requires a SHPO review. This is the original Chris form showing the building was built somewhere between 1930 and 1950. I can't read that from here, I'm sorry, I'm so blind. Anyway, the main point of this form is to show that this is an unobtrusive structure, which is a filler building on the oval. So it's of no real significance on the oval. It was the old fire department building. As I said, SHPO coordination was required. They did provide a review letter dated May 24th, sorry. And they said, based on the review, it's the opinion of SHPO that the proposed project will not have an adverse effect on historic and cultural resources. So here's just a site image of the building standing on Ohio Avenue. This is the south side of the building where the addition is proposed. In the parking lot area. And here's a simple site plan. You can see here's the existing building here, Ohio Avenue. This is the 20 by 30 addition, patio addition, and parking in the rear. And here's just the general elevation of the building showing the patio, the 18-inch wall, and the pergola roof, which is open air. Jesse also provided these really cool renderings, which I think give a really good picture of the proposed project. It's just a top-down view. You can see the open air pergola, some additional paver bricks leading to the front door of the building, and some landscaping. Here's a front view. As you can see, the roof pitch is a little bit different than what was shown in the side elevation, so that was one of the comments just to clarify. If it will look like this with flat pergola, or it will have that same pitch as was shown in the elevation. But as you can see, it's a real great improvement from what exists there now. I do believe Oval has quite a few people who like to sit outside in the summer and drink a beer, so it'll just be a real nice improvement. I also have to point out too that I love that the wall was built so that people can linger on it and sit on it. It's a great place as well. It provides additional seating. So a few of my comments, I'll just go through those while I have the images up here. I just requested some additional information in regards to the adjacent access drive, which is the IBEW building. And just curious if access will still be allowed there, if people will park next to this patio, or if parking will still remain across the street in the rear of the building. Again, I just mentioned the roof pitch, confirming what that will look like. And then any additional details in regards to how the pergola would be actually attached to the brick siding. And then confirming any landscaping, like if this is actually what's going to look like, if this plan has been, finally approved. Any lighting that's proposed for the exterior, and any signage. And then also hours of operation for the site. Those are my comments. Now I'll hand over to Jesse. Oh, before I do this, I'm sorry, Jesse, I just need to state for the record that we did review the secret part 1 and determined to be unlisted action.
So the best way to look at the rendering as opposed to the technical drawing of the pergola is the rendering is what the pavers and patio guys provided. This is what the actual pavers and pavers will be with the brick wall, where I'll be doing the pergola roof. So any question about the pavers themselves, that'll be the appearance of the pavers in the wall, where the roof will have some pitch to it. Because the windows that are on the brick wall, they're at about 10.5 feet at the top, so it'll be above there. And it'll run out over the 20-foot span, so it'll be about 10 feet high at the end. Maybe a little bit less depending on, I want it to look nice like this thing. So the wall all the way around the paper area. And the beams holding the pergola will be outside of the wall. There will actually be a row of columns that will run at 10 feet off the building and another set that run along the building. I was told by somebody that it can't be attached to the building, so they said if I did that, that's put fire suppression underneath. So when I designed, it was a technical drawing, I drew it as it not being attached to the building. Instead, we had that set of 3 columns support that header. And the actual pergola will rest on top of the header set right across the width of the structure. And I'll use the thing they call hurricane mount. So it's basically a metal mount that one part attaches to the header and the other one attaches to the pergola. And then we'll also have bracing between the pergola to keep it from moving, twisting or anything. The material for all the lumber will be locally sourced cedar, rough cut cedar from a local sawmill. Originally, I thought I was with pressure treated, but I thought the idea of supporting another small business was better than pressure treated. And cedar is a good quality. As far as the parking goes, typically in summertime when I have my outdoor seating with just like the plastic fence or the plastic chain and stuff, people don't park on this side because this is actually covering those parking spaces that would be there normally. So my intent is not to have anyone parking up to the patio. Instead, I may have a food truck parked there, so it can be access to the food truck to have seating usually eat outdoors. And the access to the IDU building is on the other side of the power line, which is, I think it's around 22 feet from the edge of the structure. So it's considerable distance to the entrance at that point, maybe a little farther than 22. And what I could do is, when it first goes up, maybe I'll have some cones or something just to make it more obvious that there's a new structure there. And that way, no one's kind of cutting in. Well, there's another question on lighting. As it is right now, there's already a floodlight on that side of the building shining down. So right now, I don't know if I would need any more lighting. If there was going to be any more lighting, it was atmosphere lighting. It wouldn't be the light in the parking lot. It would just be atmosphere, like a light string, like Edison bulb kind of thing, kind of what I use indoors as well. So I kind of had that same experience. And in the pergola section, there would be bracing as well to support all the lumber, overhead lumber. So it'll kind of look like an older pole barn kind of approach. And I actually have some historic prints inside the building from when they did the plaster idea on the base, and it kind of mimics the way the structure was.
Jesse, how close will the header be to the brick wall? I guess what are you proposing there?
I want it to be maybe an inch off.
Okay.
That's my goal. As close as possible to not noticeable, but not attached to the
Whoever gave you the advice of not anchoring was wise, that was good advice.
Yeah.
And I say that because if you attached it, it would make it part of the principal structure. As it is, being independent makes it accessory to the principal structure, which falls under a completely separate category. So I think that was good advice.
Just have a question. Are you going to be tearing up the asphalt that's there right now when you lay down your pavers or brick, or are you going to be building up on top of the asphalt?
So I asked the pavers guy, and he said he can do it either way. And I told him, as far as I'm concerned, I want to do it the best way for commercial use. This isn't something that's crumbling in 2 years. So I think what he'll do is he'll actually cut out for the wall, and then the wall will create kind of like a containment for the pavers. So there's no way that it's going to get loose or anything. So it won't be, I don't think he's going to take out all the tarmac, it'll just be that section in front of the wall. So it kind of anchors everything in.
So the pavers and the bricks will be sitting on the asphalt?
That's my understanding.
Okay, I'm just wondering if, there's any concern about, heating or cracking or anything else, because it won't be on stone dust, which is,
Right.
my experience with putting on pavers and brick.
And I really can't answer for sure, 'cause that's kind of, let them do what they do kind of thing.
Yeah.
I've never done papers myself. And if they look at the pavement, maybe they realize that it's not secure, maybe they would decide to do that, I don't know. But that'd be their commitment to doing that. I know that tarmac is older on that side of the building and it's in good shape, but I don't know if it would change with frost and all those kind of things.
Right.
Well, I'll just tell you, Laura, that I did my own last year, and I went through there at Haven Patios, and the more solid the surface and structurally sound it is, the better.
Oh, really? Okay.
I mean, as far as, I don't know, heating and things like that, you're on paving,
That's,
that's better.
well, I was thinking about the asphalt heating, and which would then push up their pavers. Because I've only done it, in the process of doing it.
Right.
And I'm just putting on stone dust.
Yeah.
So I was just curious, I've never seen that done before, so I was just wondering what the strategy is and what the,
We said it could be done both ways.
yeah. I have one other question. There's a white, like, fence, kind of an enclosure on the, I don't know if it's the west side, you guys, it's gonna be on the south side, on 90 degrees.
Yep, I understand.
Yeah, what is that structure?
So that's-
It's
that's
not
a-
there now,
It's
is
a
it?
cooler. So I had a fence there that was hiding the cooler before. Where now I might just paint the cooler itself. And that's one thing that's kind of not really accurate in this picture is, it doesn't go all the way to the side of the building. The structure only goes 30 feet, which the whole building I think is like 42 feet. So there's a portion, basically it's where the kitchen is, on that corner of the building, but at some point in time, I'd like to convert it to a commercial kitchen. And I didn't think it'd be very good to have the window where people could see it. So it'll stop before that.
So is that a fence there is that a fence that's there now? I'm just wondering.
The fence was there when they did the original measurements and stuff for this rendering.
Look at that white fence?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's like a cream color, 6 foot. But now it's just showing, like, you can see my cooler now.
So I have a couple of questions. I'm curious to know, if with the addition of seating, does that change the parking population that's required?
Yeah, that was one of our questions, was the impact on parking. Right now, is anything striped on site? I know across the street there's striped parking, but I didn't know if there's anything on site.
Yeah, it's straight right
Yeah. How much do you know parking you have?
now. I think it's around 28 spaces.
And do you have like a shared agreement for the parking across the street, or is it just if people park there, it's okay after hours?
Yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
I think that was, Conroy's parking area
Okay.
and,
You know, across the street from Global Craft, that little parking lot area.
Is this property within the Oval Parking District?
Yeah, the overflow parking.
That's,
So then is that,
that covers it, yeah.
Well, I think that'd be required law. But yeah, it is the district regardless.
Technically,
It is there.
it meets the,
and then just for clarification, there's no door, no new door that's being installed to access the pergola from the interior of.
No, I was kind of considering that at one point, of changing one of those windows into a doorway going out. But I just think it'd be a lot of work on that building because it's such an old building, all the brickwork, I just figured. As it is right now, people walk around the front, so we're just gonna keep that thing closed.
And are there any restrictions? I could imagine this being four season. I don't know what your thought is on that, but I could imagine like a chimney or you put a fire pit or something. And I'm curious if there are any restrictions on like, or not on first season, I guess on fire. You know, maybe that's not your intent, but that'd be kind of cool, but I don't know.
Yeah,
That's here. And everyone's downtown is using them.
Yeah, they have the heaters.
The heaters, yeah.
Yeah. Those are plugged in.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is to extend my season a little longer, is maybe do the ceiling mount, where it kind of just lets the heat kind of fall on people. That that's functioning, and maybe, years down the road, I could put some natural gas sweater piece kind of thing, to have more caveats.
Yeah.
But that's not even for the.
We can have to spend more money.
Yeah.
Right now, though, technically, your proposal is like 3 seasons.
3 seasons.
In the winter, you'll,
I figure with the heaters, I can get an extra month on each end.
Yep.
Hopefully.
Will the retaining wall or the seating wall, will that retain, cause water to be retained on the interior of the area? Or are you gonna be putting some kind of weeping channel through the wall, so any water accumulation inside there can be relieved?
Yeah, I don't know if it's watertight. I know it's very level right there, so I don't know if water would necessarily pool on the wall, even if there was drainage. I can't answer that, I don't know. Is
I would
this-
offer it as a suggestion to at least, look into it so that you don't have water retention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got Eric about that. And maybe that'd be part of the function of cutting into the Fahrenheit of the wall too. I don't know.
Last year, they're just bringing it down on the knee.
I think your contractor would definitely want to think about that. So you don't have that condition, you have a funnel in the middle of that, you can't get rid of it.
Right.
Go through it, not.
Yeah, and actually, one thing I did confirm with them is like, say, somebody's getting spilled out there, I can just hit it with a quick pressure washer to get rid of it, so, I'm assuming that he would be considering water runoff, moving the water out of there. That's how I would keep it.
Your, the plantings that show in front, is that something you're going to do, or?
Well, it wasn't on my radar until I saw these, and I thought, oh, that's other stuff. I kind of look at it now, and these are really pretty, so, maybe not immediately, but in the future, it's definitely an improvement what there is now. The thing is, when I do live music, I kind of set them up kind of in this area right about here. So if I did something, it wouldn't be so tall, it'd just be lower, that way people still see the people can use it as well. But I do like the landscaping for sure. And that's something too, I don't know yet, is when he does the walkway, is, how is that going? So right now that's, kind of like trampled earth right there right now, so now he's gonna, I'm assuming he's gonna level it, so I don't know how much he's gonna cut down. If it'll be a step down or it'll be level.
Jesse, how late are you open?
Generally, well, pre-COVID, I was open till 10 o'clock at night, now I'm not open that late anymore. We have a closing time of 8, if we are busy, we can stay later, but it's not a late night. I think the latest I've ever been open was 11, that was an opening night. Get as much as I could, but, otherwise, yeah, if I do make an adjustment at some point, because we're busier, it would be 10 o'clock. Would be the latest.
So 10 o'clock in the morning, what is your typical open time?
I open at 3 on weekdays and 1 on, because there is a school across the road, so I make sure the school's cleared out.
That was part of my question, yeah, I mean, just more for the record than anything. It's too quick, neighborhood wise, everything, all go well together.
Yeah.
Under other proposals, that might be more of a question for the board to address.
Yeah.
Same thing with the landing. I like the idea of it more aesthetically, but other than or other proposals, everybody was spring or what, your hours of operation. The point that you look out first, like a school across the street. Any other comments, questions? Well, we do have a public hearing for this application. So I will, open the public hearing. And Shalice, if you can let me know if anybody's on the line who wants to comment, or anybody in the audience that would, comment for the public hearing.
President, we do not have anything very.
Do we have anybody that we,
There's only one name, the attendee list that I still don't recognize as national director.
okay. Give it a second, in case there's a lag in the system. Still nothing, okay, well, no comments, we will, move to close the public hearing. And move on to the seeker component for the project.
I'll make a motion.
So before we made a motion on the seeker, we did start out, I think it's our first time back into in person, but we did go to the part to the seeker in the past for the short form. So
Please will pull that up.
yeah, we probably should do that or continue with that.
So, just a reminder to the public watching, I will read the question, and if there's no response, I will check no or small impact may occur. If you feel moderate or so large impact may occur, please do that. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulation? Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walking? Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? Will the proposed action impact existing public or private water supply? Will the proposed action impact existing public or private wastewater treatment utilities? Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, for example, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? Any other responses, or will turn the correct box?
Okay, with the completed part two, we do have a seeker resolution 2021-A. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt seeker resolution 2021-10A to declare the project an unlisted action to complete seeker part 2, the negative declaration no significant harm.
Motion by Kurt, do I have a second? Second. Second by Derek. Further comment? Roll call.
Rick Perry,
Yes.
Greg Carter,
Yes.
Kurt Rivers,
Yes.
Jim Abell,
Yes.
Derek Rosenbaum.
The seeker 21-10B, or approval of the site review application. So motion.
I'm happy to make that motion, I just want to be clear, we didn't have any conditions, correct?
I had a question. It says, well, I guess, have the variances been obtained
Yeah,
last week? Is
yes,
that-
last
okay.
year, and especially minutes.
Okay. Conditions beyond that,
I might like to recognize the applicants. First, maybe desires for the plantings in location shown on the rendering. Be a nice aesthetic in the small portion of screening from the street. And the school across the road, child care across the road. If that's acceptable.
Half of the existing, there's a tree there, there's 2 trees there. Could I take those down with the, better? That's what you can do, or?
I suppose as long as you maybe want to confirm with DPW or something, that they're not, not city trees, I'm assuming they're on the property, but I don't know. That'd be, the language would be non-reasonable,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
just to confirm. That's not done.
Then what the recommendation was required?
I think it's more, truthfully, I think it's more recognizing the applicant. It's a good idea, I think it's a good idea, so. I'm gonna say a recommendation.
so I mean, we know what the papers are gonna look like, and the only thing different from the picture is that it's gonna be cedar, instead of pressure treated. It won't be attached to the building. It might be on the pavement, or it might be down, dug into the pavement. Anything else that to make sure it comes out the way we're building it, I guess.
So it's as detailed on the plan. Right, we didn't request any changes or alterations.
The only thing that I would add is that lacking a survey, if you were to assess the center line of the road and measure 33 feet toward your building, that's where your property line is going to be. So I don't know if it's going to be within your property line or how far out, I don't know what the measurements are there, but just as a guide, if you take that center line, measure that, that's where your property is.
The material will be fine, typically within the building, but the walkway coming out around.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember the Maple Fields building, but the office building behind it was 4 feet through the road. So, when things were divided out on the old base, they literally took the center line of the road, measured it out, and that's where the property line is. Yeah.
Mine doesn't quite argue in the middle of it, too. Mine doesn't pretty close.
Yeah, I don't know what the distances are.
Some of that's probably just good recommendation to confirm, just so you don't have issues down the road, whatever it may be. Okay, I think that's generally all the comments. Kurt said, we're almost approving things as they were presented. So, we do have a resolution, proposed resolution, do you have a motion for that?
Motion to adopt resolution 2021-10B to approve historic site review application and related materials with any conditions as noted, which I don't think we noted within the discussion.
Okay, that motion by Kurt, that's second. Second by Ray. Roll call.
Chris Carter,
Yes.
Kurt Curtis.
Yep.
Jim Abdullah,
Yes.
Chair Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Chair.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you. Great project.
Hope it brings people up.
Oh, yeah.
But,
Bye-bye.
If the board doesn't mind, maybe take a few minutes break. We'll say 5 minutes, we will return. Approximately 7:25.
So, am I doing documents now?
That's an over.
So.
Yeah. Thank you, Rich.
good one.
We need you.
Yeah, congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
you.
Yeah, you can get it.
So the standard that the city has run, it really kind of depends on who is the current and who is the current position. The position is the mayor appoints any members, and so if he can choose to.
Oh, God.
Matt, how are you?
Good.
Like seeing
a stranger.
All right. It's January.
Or sometimes he cannot help you with like from the public, which can also.
So,
Yeah. Kurt was a full-time member in the past, and then due to scheduling conflicts was, he can help him for that.
Have you guys passed the bylaws? No. Okay. How you doing, Laura?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm doing well.
I've not been out weeding my yard.
I see you weeding your yard 2 or 3 days a week when I'm driving.
Well, I've been weeding grass, okay?
So I.
That was like a
Your
COVID.
new garage looks great, by the way.
Yeah, you know what I love is the back entry that he built.
I haven't seen the back.
Well, if you drive on Main Street, it's the back entry.
Okay.
And he just did it's like a little black, it's not really even a porch, but he just did a real Adirondack.
Yeah, I'll have
It
to check
just
that
makes
out.
my heart sing.
Yeah.
So, funny story, I honestly thought your house was not that one, I thought it was on the land, whatever the next one up is.
Yeah.
And then, you know this, but one day I was dropping off Reggie's packet, totally missed the house, turned it into like the first driveway I climbed, which happened to be through as she was walking out. Really coincidence, I got to go in and see all the renovations.
Mhm. I didn't know that was until I was driving to work one day and you were outside working in your garden. I'm like, that's the right.
I didn't know it until I was in her driveway.
Yeah.
Well, you know, when we went under construction, the DMV uses our driveway for the 3-point turn. And they've done it, I mean, when I first moved in, I was like, how many people are lost in this neighborhood?
Yeah.
Y'all were in Reggie's house, and this
Yeah, it was just like, wow, this is really weird. And then,
Wait, so you're talking the driving test that started over by Campus
Yeah,
Corner?
yeah,
They use your driveway as,
as the 3-point turn, they have to drive downtown and then go out.
That's random as
And
hell.
then pull into my, because, you know, Lane Street has way too much traffic.
yeah, that's a good point.
And so it's just a really good place. That's the one they use.
Oh, okay.
And so I had no idea, like, how many people in this city get lost every day. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, wow.
So anyway,
You ever called the DMV? Like, hey, would you mind using my neighbor's driveway from time to time?
well, I had no idea what the DMV, I just thought it was people who kept missing their turns or got lost or whatever, I thought, it's not lost. Then my license had expired, and so I had to do that, and test to get a new one.
Oh, and they're like, hey, pull into
And
your
so, yeah,
driveway.
I'm gonna take a left here, and I'm taking a left, I okay, pull into this driveway, I'm like, this is my house.
Like, oh,
And the
now I
guy
get it.
was like,
Oh, I get it.
this is my driveway.
Yeah.
Because it's always used it.
All those people I thought were
Well, so
lost.
anyway, when we had the construction,
I'm sorry.
they couldn't pull in, and they literally were like, how much longer are you gonna be? I said, well, there's a pandemic, okay?
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Okay.
It cost, it did take a lot longer. They said, well, they really need to destroy it. But I go back.
Yeah, just like going to your neighbor's house.
Oh, wow, it was just so funny when I came back, two guys like, I saw him.
Oh, you messing with me, man? This is my place.
I don't took it there.
Oh, it's worth it. It's great. Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out. Like, when I first got it, I thought I had no parking. They just flattened it out, they put down, stone dust, stone food also. They got 6 inches back. Which was, oh, but I'm not gonna see the little back there, I'm not gonna, I think I like that. No, all the way there, we're gonna start from scratch, so I'm trying to figure that out. But that is, we just don't look at it. And I was going to use such a huge wood, and my contractor said, what do you mean, such a huge wood, twists as
Okay.
which I did not know. So, you should use it for footer.
Right.
Something, structure.
Okay.
But I'm looking at it, it's kind of black, and you can get, yeah.
Long overdue.
We're at 7:27.
I'm gonna have to think hard about it.
Get a shot.
Because everything else is like black.
That was Shane's weather.
Okay, we'll, call the meeting, back to order. And we are now on what was application number 1, or the first item that we moved out of the third item, planning board application 20-21-08. This is the city of Plattsburgh Harborside subdivision.
All right, so item number 1, 2021-08, City of Plattsburgh Harborside subdivision. This is a request for a 4-lot split merge subdivision of 3 existing lots with improvements into 3 new parcels of 14.82 acres, 5.57 acres, and 7.76 acres in the extension of Green Street as a public road. Located on Green Street, zoned I and RC1 in the waterfront overlay district. Tax map parcel IDs 207.20-1-2.32, 207.20-1-1, and 207.20-1-2.31. The applicant is the city of Plattsburgh. The plan preparer is RMS. We do have Aaron via Zoom to answer any questions, and we also have Matt here as well. Okay.
Oh, I see the parking over.
Oh, we have Jeff and Aaron. Okay. Oh, it's gonna take a second to skip to the next slide. Okay, so here's an overview of the site. Ooh, too many times. Highlighted in yellow. This is the all city-owned property. So this is off of Green Street and Dock Street on the city's waterfront, Cumberland Bay. It includes the old NLDER, the water resource recovery facility, an undeveloped property with existing improvements, parking lots, a public boat launch, Peace Point Park, and a city marina. This is slow. This is the zoning map showing the property is actually split into 2 different districts. The public facilities are in the industrial district, and the rest of the property is zoned RC1, and all of it is within the waterfront overlay district. Which means it's just additional restrictions because it's on the waterfront. And here's our historic overlay map showing a portion of the properties in the historic district. This is an old rail yard, and also because it's in the Plattsburgh Bay, it's considered historic. Okay, so we're going to do a tour of Harborside. So this is driving off of Dock Street. This is looking directly at the city marina and the marina parking lot, and to the left is Peace Point Park. Hopefully these pictures are in like a pretty good order so we don't get busy here. So this is continuing around Dock Street, which is technically a private road at this point, looking at Peace Point Park. This is looking directly straight into the property, looking west. This is that vacant undeveloped parcel. It's about 7 acres. Just kind of spinning around a little bit. This is sort of like that unofficial parking lot, gravel area along Dock Street. Continuing back around the property, heading west, this is a little roundabout area near the public boat launch. This is spinning around 360 degrees, looking back towards the water. And going a little bit farther west in the property, this is the parking area for the public boat launch. A lot of oversized parking spaces here for trucks and trailers. And you can see the line of lighting on the left-hand side of this picture. This is approximately where the new lot line will be for the proposed subdivision. So this is looking at the old MLB yard. You can see all the buildings are demolished now, except for the one building that is now home to the Plattsburgh Farmers Market. Here's a close-up of the Farmers Market. I included this photo because you can see how close the building is to the Worth parking lot, which is a boundary for one of the proposed parcels. I think this is 5 feet. I included this photo, so this is the site plan for the Farmers Market building, just showing the layout of the parking lot. With this subdivision, I assumed there would be some concerns about parking and loss of parking. And I did a quick analysis, and at the Farmers Market location, there's about 126 parking spaces that the city will retain for public use. The boat launch area will retain about 50 public parking spaces. We'll also retain an overflow parking lot that'll be about 62 spaces, and the marina has 77 spaces. So overall, the city will retain 350 parking spaces at Harborside. So this is a subdivision plat showing the existing parcels as they exist now. The orange parcel includes the MLD lot, the work facility. The blue parcel is that overflow parking and the vacant land. And the white parcel on the right is Peace Point Park and the city marina. So essentially, the new subdivision will just be rearranging those lot lines, still 3 lots, well, including the Dean Street extension, 4 lots technically. The new lot will be Lot B, which is the MLB lots. The city will retain this. The Worth, all of the waterfront, some of that overflow parking, Peace Point Park and the marina, all of this will be retained by the city. And then a new developable parcel in blue here, which is about 7.7 acres. So this is the actual final plat. We asked RMS to colorize it just because it's a little bit easier to read than this one. The lot lines are a little bit different, and the colorized map doesn't include the extension of Green Street, but this is the final map in front of you that was in your packet. It includes the zoning table, which includes the dimensions for all of the new proposed lots, including Green Street. A lot of utilities down here, which will require easements once this property is developed, but for the purposes of this subdivision, the city will be retaining all of these lots at this point, so there's no need for those easements. So now I'd like to hand it over to Matt or Aaron or Jeff or anyone that'd like to add some additional comment. Oh, I'm sorry, before I do that though, I will just say for the record that although this is advisory review only for the board, the council will be conducting a very thorough secret review. It will be considered a type 1 action, and it will be a coordinated review.
Elena, in your parking assessment,
Yep.
you identified at the boat launch 50 parking spaces, and then it says oversized trailer spaces.
So I'll go back to that photo. The way the lots are, I can't go back in. Oh, okay, thank you. The way the lots are now, it will actually split that northern parking lot. But any development that happens on that new developable parcel will have a shared access agreement to allow people to actually pull through those spots, because the only large spots on site are actually to the west of the actual boat launch, and then in that parking lot, the spots are still by those lights. I can't put it, it's not working. But we will have a shared access agreement, shared parking agreement to allow boats and trailers to be able to park on both parcels.
They will be allowed.
Yeah, we'll be allowed to.
Yeah, because the typical trailer tow vehicle is 44 feet.
Exactly. And only some of the spots that are not 50 are all configured to accommodate trucks and trailers. But like I said, any development on that property, we will require use of those spots through the site.
Okay. For
boats and trailers, and
or-
always maintaining public access. We have to maintain public access to that boat launch, so that's a consideration as well.
Elena, this falls under advisory review because of the new law that was passed, is that correct?
Yep, local law P4 last year.
On this one, so the farmer's market lot, that's what I'm gonna call it.
Yep.
Will that be, is that considered one of the developable lots?
Yes, technically, it's maybe a phase 2 of development. Right now, the city will retain that parcel, for use of the farmer's market and use to the public, but, 20 years from now, 10 years from now, it technically could be split and subdivided, and that's the intent of why we're extending Green Street, so that potentially a developer could develop a piece of that parcel. But right now, there is no plans for it.
Matt and Jeff both, in our pre-meeting, we had discussion about the Green Street extension. And the sketch doesn't show, a compliant street width, 66 feet. Just to bring it to your attention, as we're here as advisors, maintain consistency with the standards we impose on the public. I feel that you should follow that standard.
Yeah, we'll have a discussion with RMS to see what accommodations to that standard can be made, given the geometry that we're working with down there.
I mean, the reality is there's many streets in the city that aren't of 66-foot wide width. Green Street's existing width on the portion that's south of the railroad is certainly inhibited by the former PMS building and what's allowed there just based on the building. So extending it up the 50-foot width was just to conform with the existing Green Street to maintain that width, but I'm not opposed to changing that, making that width. I mean,
Yeah, Jeff, just for clarification, no street of 50-foot width has been created in a long time. Yes, there are deficient street widths, but none have been created or authorized by a board in many, many years.
I would question that. I think most subdivision streets are of 50-foot width. The New York State Town Highway law would require a minimum width of 3 rods, which is 49.5 feet. So, I mean, certainly if there's a city regulation that I'm not aware of, but we have created 50-foot wide streets.
Did I understand that it's the intent to make Green Street one way?
No, that's a temporary, a periodic accommodation to the operation of the farmer's market. There have been discussions with the Common Council and the mayor's office where on days when the market is operating, Green Street would be converted for those days only to one-way traffic into the site, out of the second exits, around Green Street, through the Harborside parking lots and out to Dock Street. We ordered the signage for that just yesterday. We hope to have it implemented in coordination with the farmers market by not this weekend, but the following weekends.
So coming off Bridge and turning on to Green Street, it would be one way going north.
It'd be one way going north, and that would also free up some space for pedestrians to make it safer with, again, the limitations that we're working with there, having no shoulder on either side.
Now, assume these parcels are developed at some point. What would be the plan to accommodate that, given the constraints already associated with Green Street, specifically at the intersection of Bridge and Green?
Sure, it's absolutely a problem intersection. I believe Milena mentioned earlier, a recommendation for a traffic study of Green Street, but there are ongoing conversations about the best way to widen Green Street to accommodate more steady traffic down into the harbor side, because it is a priority for the city to make that a more usable space for its residents.
The last time I came out of there, I was dodging cars and people and dogs. I mean, it was.
Oh, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I was walking.
Yeah, you were one of the people I dodged.
Yeah.
I want to go back to my point because many applications have been denied. And I'll give you one prime example is the access to Aldi's. Between the car wash and that vacant building is 60 feet in width. City denied Aldi's making that a public street because it lacked the 66-foot required width. And I'd like to know the streets that you created in the city of Plattsburgh that are 50 feet wide.
Yeah, I'll have to get back to you on that. I'm just telling you what New York State Town Highway law is. But yeah, I'll look and see in our records. And get you copies.
So to your point, Rick, I guess more for the record, making sure it's clear in our review to the Common Council. You know, the city's subdivision ordinance, section 300-16, street design. You know, the smallest, the minimum right-of-way width is 66 feet at a minor street. So that
Okay.
should be at least identified as.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that, I'm not sure of the subdivision code, whether we're allowed to, or that's a variance or that's a deviation that the planning board is allowed to approve.
I honestly don't think it's a big deal. I mean, we could take that width from what it would be the industrial use lot and just extend it, you know, the 16 feet to the north.
Yeah.
That way lot B is not affected, and make it the 66-foot width. It's just the only oddity is that the southern part of Green Street is not 66-foot wide. So,
Yeah.
but no, I'm not opposed to making it 66-foot wide. I don't think there's a problem with that.
Yeah, our function is to be advisory and having the knowledge. If I fail to mention it, I'd be remiss in my responsibility.
And I would add the southern section seems problematic because it is, you know.
And it's also on the rise, you know, you go up at that last part, so
Quite frankly, some of these decisions are gonna be up to the Common Council.
Yeah.
So I think we just pointed out, you know, note that it's another variation from our code. Maybe we'll address it with Jeff and our support. Point out, I'm, you know, on the street side of things, I'm also, I point out the pre-meeting that, you know, the city reserved the rights and however that occurs, will appropriate turnaround and egress from the site for plow trucks and that type of thing, or emergency vehicles. However that's accomplished. I think I talked about variance creation, we've identified the street, we've identified the setback, which occurs, you know, due to property line location. We should make sure that that's very clear from our guidance, you know, that any other things that are identified variance wise go to the Common Council. Reciprocal easements, you know, shared easements for parking, ability. I recognize that some of that may not be addressed specifically in the subdivision, because the same owners can be there, but it should all be addressed at some point. One other question I had was, these sites have a number of different funding scenarios that have been allowed throughout the years, whether it's wastewater treatment plant, parking lot, farmers market, the marina building, you know, there's a number. Are any of these funding scenarios require special approval for change lots that they sit on as of today?
I have reviewed all of the extant materials that the Department of State could find in their debt files going back to 1997 for all of the state money that has gone into those lots. There are, from what I can tell, no remaining obligations on the city as to uses or disposition of those sites related to that fire ground.
Okay. And then Jeff, I would, well, Jeff is still there, say that anything in the title search, might show up.
I'm here. I'm just having trouble hearing, so I didn't want to make you look in my ear. So put the video off and I'm holding you up to my ear. Sorry.
Okay, I was just pointing out any funding that stops you from changing, property lines without approval from the funding entities. Maybe that might show up in the title if there is anything. So, note that for the record.
Matt, that includes the whole hotel debacle.
That includes the whole hotel debacle and all of the money that went into the parking lots that were intended to serve it originally.
I have a question. So when I asked about the 315 spots down there that are not going to be included in the city, the downtown parking spaces, if as things develop down there, I think it'd be realistic to assume that businesses along Bridge Street are probably going to develop, and those are places that are going to will want to identify parking. Will they be able to include those spots as areas where their patrons can park?
I think that would mean the creation of another overlay parking district or the, change of the SAD boundaries. I don't think that's in the conversation right now, but I
I'm
really
just wondering if that's
when
something.
we start diving into Harborside master plan, it's absolutely a consideration. Because you're right, there's going to be a need for additional parking in this area now.
Yeah, on Bridge Street, hopefully, there's some big buildings there, and hopefully those are gonna see, some retail, some, whatever, and.
The two buildings right on the end of Green Street are.
Oh, they're amazing, that old Butcher place,
Uh-huh.
oh, my God,
That's a big brewery or restaurant.
oh, absolutely, but again, the parking is just right down.
And it will be public parking, but as far as, being able to count this public parking towards their requirement, that conversation.
Okay, but that is a conversation that we're not doing anything to preclude.
Right.
Or when, at least for the common council, hopefully they're not going to preclude that being an option moving forward.
So zooming out, I think it's easy to get lost in the real technical elements of this. But zooming out, I have a couple of bigger picture issues. So one is the kind of irregular shaped lots that the city is going to come away with in this, and the kind of fragmenting of what is the big green piece right now, which really poses an obstacle to the city finding some real civic use out of this space to create a big, some kind of big community space where the public can come and enjoy this site. Because the farmers market is a lot of it, which is, I think this is a great location for the farmers market. But it's a lot of pavement there, to have big green space or a concert venue or a food truck set up or something. With this kind of fragmenting and irregular shape, we really pose an obstacle to that. What is the blue lot? I presume is likely to be zoned as RC2, which requires 45% open space. I wonder if the city would designate what is 45% of this 7-acre blue lot, retain that 45% in city ownership, and then give a variance to the developer for the piece that they need in order to develop what they want. So the city can keep a big contiguous piece of the site to do some interesting community scale kind of civic plan.
Yeah, because half of it's paved right now, so putting it on there, you'd be getting past the open space. right? The blue.
Oh, right, it could be, yeah.
You wouldn't be able to even build it.
It's 7 acres, I mean,
Okay. How much do they make?
good question.
Anyway,
50%?
And then also, to add to that, the aesthetic of this site is the view looking to the marina and looking to Champlain Bay or Cumberland Bay. And so if we were to think about how that blue site is developed as RC1 or RC2, putting a building on what is the eastern portion of that the blue site really eliminates what is the grand view. So I would encourage the city to identify the 45, what is 45% of that 7 acres, and to keep that 45% open space on what is the eastern side so that that view is retained. And then whatever is developed on the remaining piece with the variance is along Green Street on the western side of what is currently the blue piece. Does that make any sense?
That's also the most desirable portion of that lot, that might be a house. Not be able to develop the one lot.
Well, I think they really take the public's view
Yeah.
of Cumberland Bay. You know,
We have parks all along the river and the waterfront. I totally get what you're saying now.
So that would be one thing that strikes me looking at the big picture of this site. And then the other thing that strikes me is that I'm a little uncomfortable having this conversation because in the last 3 months, the city has contracted for $100,000 for a consulting firm to do a master plan of the site and has a community advisory board where they're asking citizens in the community to give significant time to thinking about this site. And there's now a parallel track of kind of vision developing, and the property alignment here really sets the stage. And so we've got community members and consultants that are envisioning what could happen here, but we're like playing with the field as they do that planning. They haven't even started their process.
No, it's been interesting trying to work through this. In addition to the subdivision, we also have a county LWRP grant that we received way back in 2016. And it was for, I believe, a boathouse, an information center, and some other small improvements to the Harborside area. We've asked for a rewrite of that scope because we already have a building on Monet. We don't need another boathouse. And the other improvements are just not really applicable anymore. But anyway, so that grant is going to be happening at the same time as Harborside Master Plan. We have the subdivision, we have talks with developers. So there's a lot going on in Harborside at the same time, and the farmers market moved down there. So it's going to be a coordinating effort with our consultant to make sure that they're aware of everything that's going on. Like you said, get input from the PAC, which should be happening, I believe, the next month. End of next month, we'll have that first meeting. That's all. Because this won't get finalized or approved before then.
So my issue is that, like, if I were on that committee and I were giving time to thinking about what this site is, but at the same time, I learned that the city is promoting property line adjustment and dividing up the property, thinking about how it might be rezoned, I would say, why are you asking me to put my time in this process? And why are we spending $100,000 on consultant when it seems like the city has a vision for what they want? And if the city has a vision, then that's fine. I would say to the city, then don't ask community members to, don't create a community advisory committee and don't engage a consultant on a master plan if you know what you want to do.
But it's only 7 acres that's being set aside. The rest of it will be remaining city property. So we're asking the community for the vision for all of the city property, including the waterfront.
The 7 acres are, as you said, the most desirable part of the property and the big contiguous piece. I mean, a lot of what we are looking at in the remaining acreage, it's all green on this map, but it is not all green. It is a wastewater treatment plant. And so the flexibility of what you do with the rest of that site is.
Sure. And we've done a lot of planning down here. There actually is an old Harborside master plan. There's a highest and best use study that we did as part of the DRI process. So there's been a lot of planning down here, so I also question why are we doing another 100% master plan, but we have the money, so we need to move forward with that, identifying, I think it's gonna be more, fine grained, right? We wanna know what do people wanna do down here, what do they wanna come and see, why would they come down here? And then also, a big part of that master planning is also the interpretive center, which is, a big idea for the work. So it's really gonna drill down into what does that environmental learning center look like? And why would people feature on there, et cetera. So we have an exhibit, specialists have the exhibits on board. So it's gonna be very fine grained, and we're asking them not so much for big vision stuff, because you're right, we know how we want to run the property. But the documents that we're hoping to get will be more of, almost engineered plans. Here's your next steps, here's how you do it.
So I just want to respond to that, and I'll let other people talk. But, so the challenge I have with that is that in the request for bids and the consultant plan, the hotel subdivision was not part of what was kind of in that material. And so I don't know how, right, so you have a consultant who's doing a master plan that does not include this plan and the idea of the hotel. You have a community advisory committee that's put together to work on the site that doesn't have this plan and hasn't been kind of fully brought up to date on this plan. So to me, it's either the subdivision is cart before the horse, or there are some unnecessary things that are happening that are wasting people's time and money. That if the city has a plan, they should just go ahead and implement the plan. That would not be my preference. So in our advisory role, my advice here is just to pump the brakes on the subdivision, to let the master planning process and the community advisory committee do their work for a bit, and then see if the vision that they have aligns with the vision that we want.
Well, this is probably a reflection of my ignorance, but when this is subdivided, is it automatically zoned or rezoned?
No, that's a good question now, or a good comment. We are looking at rezoning the northern portion of the site that's currently zoned industrial, RC plan. So we are, as you know, we're going through our comp plan updates and our zoning code updates as well, and when we look at land use and our zoning code updates, we will.
But the subdivision itself.
No, the subdivision won't
Does not
impact.
preclude anything. It's still a blank sheet of paper.
Yep. Yep. It's just changing lines on
Somewhat
that.
constrained geographically, but it's still blank.
So as we discussed, the blue portion is the 7 acres, that's the desirable portion of the property. Why aren't we just doing that and leaving the rest as green for now until there's more study and there's more input from study in public for the remaining property? Once again, the blue section seems to be a little bit of the focus right now. Why not leave the rest of the property as is?
I guess it was the intent that we're doing subdivision now, you might as well carve out that other lot that has potential development or development potential.
Hence,
The rest of the property we need to maintain or retain because of the water and the work facility.
Well, once again, I guess if I had to, give it, that's what this board is doing, is giving advice to the council to make ultimate. I can't see how. I can see why you might do subdivision like this, but it seems that I can't disagree with Kirk. The cart before the horse a little bit in terms of all the different. I mean, there's been so much money spent down on the site, improvements spent down there, contracts signed for running operations, then taken away. Contracts, I mean, there's been so much done that seems like a nice, not having another cart before the horse kind of situation, or advising on that, something like that.
And I think that it's at this moment, it's like the moment of subdivision, that you have a real chance to either create some cohesion around a vision, or it's when things start to get conflicted. Because it's at the moment that you do this, that you have a community group, put together a city hall, community advisory committee, and a consultant working on one vision, and the city makes a move that is potentially down another path. And that's what starts like the little cracks the little cracks that eventually become sinkholes. Right, and then just pumping the brakes, so we've got these processes going on, let's just wait a few months, and then that's the chance to create a unified.
Blaine, did you say that the city has to retain all the
All the
water?
green, yeah. And the city will retain the orange parcel as well, but like I said, it does have development potential. It's not on the radar right now, but so the city will retain the orange and the green.
The city can't ever sell out any of the waterfront for development.
No, not without legislative,
Because I mean, in my mind, thinking of developing with views of the waterfront, even if it's the river to the north of the farmer's market piece or the orange piece. Since if Green Street's gotta be redone anyway and widened, what if right when you cross the railroad tracks, you cut off Green Street there and turn it to this, going along I guess that would be the western boundary. And then cut back across to get to the water pollution roadway. So that then, if there is development, Green Street's not blocking the way of the waterfront. You understand what I'm saying?
I don't, I'm sorry, I'm
Where-
trying to picture it.
Where Green Street crosses, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just abandon Green Street there, but turn it, I mean, it'd be a 90-degree or more turn.
Yeah, and I don't know that truck traffic serving will work with the other.
I guess it just kind of gets in the way of the
Yeah.
water by having to go around.
I mean, there's potential for it to just go through the middle of that orange site,
And then just retain where the farmer's market is and kind of have the road bisected
But
there.
it's
But I
right.
just feel like that, I don't know if there's, but I guess if you can't really, I guess you could sell off a piece in that, but that would be the northwest section.
Right.
If the road were further to the south, as long as the city just, whatever it means, but you on the,
I don't know if the
on the
exact
waterfront.
is.
Yeah, it's open to interpretation, but the maintenance of a functional waterfront is a key factor.
I guess that's just a thought.
Yeah.
I also have a question about why is the city retaining the green piece between the tan?
Yeah, that's a parking lot, it is just to retain that as public parking, no storage, DPW, et cetera. Just sort of look at the need for another parking agreement.
Why not shift what is blue to tuck it in there so that the green, so that the city retains a larger contiguous piece up near the waterfront? So that the two developable pieces are.
I'm confused.
All the parking is to the.
Yeah, take the pointer. Yeah, to the left.
Why, this piece right here?
Yeah.
Why not take what is blue and tuck a portion of it back in here so the two developable pieces are adjoining? And then,
Split green and blue.
Well, because the city wants to retain that parking.
but why not, if you shift the blue over here, you regain that as contiguous space up here in one area?
You're saying shave off part of the eastern side of the blue, retain that.
That's not parking.
It's not parking, right? It's really not.
But it could be.
It could be if we wanted to put money into it.
Yeah, but then you got, then you got a parking lot right on the most beautiful part of the waterfront.
Yeah, I would, well, I would encourage the city to not look at parking lots as the highest and best use and to look at,
No,
like, I'm not sure why the city wants this parking lot.
overflow, boat events, like, fishing events. I don't know.
Well, also for the farm, I mean, yeah, I mean, they have concerts and stuff down there, that's a,
Snow sports.
and there's nothing terribly attractive about that, the big use of parking.
Is the property that's gonna be, for the two, both lots, it's all gonna be strictly private, not gonna be connected?
Correct, but I mean, it's the intent to connect Green Street over to Dock Street, and then, as I said, access to the blue lot is undecided at this point, that's what develops that. It could be a secondary access off of Water Street. Use of the train.
So the city, okay, I mean, you're gonna have to go through the blue parcel to get to
Yeah.
that parking lot regardless.
Yeah. Well, and we would require an access. Right, so.
I guess going back to my initial comment, you can start somewhere. And this definitely subdivides the property, it gives you two developable, marketable parcels for the city that they can say, we have these. The lot lines can be adjusted in the future, or they can be merged back in the future. I guess I would recommend that the common council take a real good holistic, doing their holistic view of this
Yeah.
parcel after that, even though they have this subdivision here, that this is just a subdivision, it's not an overall.
I agree with all your comments, Kurt, though. I've been struggling with the timing of the Harbor City Master Plan and subdivision.
Well, I think it's the timing that, you know, this is the time to say, we either create a cohesive vision for this by pumping the brakes for a little bit, or we're likely setting ourselves on a path where we're gonna have divergence about what could happen here.
It's just, it's, like I said before, it's tough because there's been so many planning documents down here, and Mike and Betsy said they look excited, and they all identified this parcel as a hotel, with parking. So like, it's already been planned, it's already been identified, and I think the Harbor Master Plan is going to work those biggest visions into.
Then if that's true, because my opposition is not to that idea of a hotel. I mean, I would, you know, we can debate the placement of it in that newspaper, but that's not my opposition. My opposition is that on one hand, the city has asked community members to put in a bunch of time envisioning the site, and is sinking money into a consultant saying, we want to envision the site, while walking down another path that's already setting the stage for what
But
happens.
it's just subdivision, it's not development, and like I said, the city will retain the green and the orange, and the blue has already been previously identified for prime development and past studies.
I think that's like saying to the community, we want you to put on a play, any play you want, go and come back in 6 months and tell us what play you want to put on, and then in the meantime, you already built a set to Wizard of Oz.
I don't agree, but.
I certainly don't either.
Does anyone trump the other? Does the master plan trump subdivision or subdivision?
No, I mean, our goal is just to coordinate.
But if I guess if the town council does a subdivision, the way it's laid out here, master plan goes back to something different, that doesn't matter, because they're going to subdivide.
We can subdivide again, we can change the law.
I think that's my recommendation to the council, which is making all these decisions, is that, you know, even though they're gonna create these parcels, and guess what, the cart before the horse may be necessary for marketing purposes, or whatever is needed, that they make sure that final decisions are made on an overall.
On the overall
You
vision.
know, there's not some rash decision made to get rid of a parcel. Once again, bad decisions get made, or can potentially get made with this kind of
Segmentation.
segmentation. Yep.
But it's all retained by the city.
It's all new change density.
It's just money for engineers, right? That's all that's lost if this is all or nothing.
I don't know, but I mean, once again, speak about that, before my time, I know that there were many bad decisions with properties in the city, and made agreements that were poorly planned and made in this kind of fashion. That's what I would like to recognize, and that it's not be done here, and that we recognize this is sort of like a carpet for the horse kind of thing, and not people do law, even our planner recognizes it, so that's the thought.
I mean, we don't need any, I mean, we're just supposed to identify issues, right?
Yeah, we've done.
Yeah. Well, I agree, I would totally agree.
The only other question I would have about this, and this is more for the board to understand, and you know, I understand this whole advisory role and the law that was put in place, and the subdivision of this is all the common council. When the common council sells this property off, or they reach an agreement, that comes back to us in the normal process?
Oh, yeah, you guys can see any site plan that was proposed for the site.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like that, so any.
This is the city product, advisory, but any private development, absolutely, we do.
So even more of a reason advisory wise that we're offering these comments, because remember, if the city does try to sell these, we're gonna be stuck.
You're stuck with it, yeah.
We're gonna be stuck with, did you get access easements? Did you take care of the utilities?
Yeah.
If the developer, whoever developer, then it's coming to us to.
Yeah.
approve stuff.
Yeah, and that's right. So in identifying, right, we're identifying those other problems that when it comes back to us later, we will say,
You said this earlier.
Yeah, so. Yep. I don't know, does anybody have any other thoughts?
The only thought that I have is with the railroad track and access to the site, there are a few times during the course of the day that you're not able to access the area. And my concern is if you had an emergency response to that site, is there or has any consideration been given to an alternative to the single access?
I believe that was looked at in detail with the previous hotel development. I went through that file and I did find some letters coordinating with the regional rail coordinator, and they did have some suggestions, but I think overall they looked at the timing of the trains, the volume of the traffic going through there, and they didn't see an issue, and they didn't recommend any of it.
Okay, and I can assure you you're correct, because 20 years ago I was part of that process.
Okay.
Okay, and it was a lingering question.
Yeah, course.
They even talked about putting somewhat of a bridge that came off Bridge Street onto the site, just so that access wouldn't be denied by a train, blocking both Green Street and Dock Street.
Yep.
So just throwing it out there, historic question. There may be a solution to that, I don't know. And I am encouraged by when you introduced the project, you called that the boat launch parking, not the hotel parking.
No, that's the whole one.
We heard that for 20 years. The boat launch parking.
Okay, once again, I don't know, any other comments? If not, then I think,
What is the summary of it? I mean, my understanding, the essence is, the whole question around timing. And the fact that we've got a group working in good faith at a time we're trying to build trust. And although technically this precludes nothing, it may be perceived very differently. And to your point, that's when the cracks start. So the question I think then becomes, is there something driving the timing or to just wait until the other groups are together and there's a consensus? So we're talking about rule of reason, not rule of law. I mean, I understand rule of law is going to change anything, but rule of reason may be very different. Is that the essence of what we're talking about?
I'd say that's pretty good. That's a pretty good summary.
We'll put together a summary and pass that on.
The other thing, and I'm not trying to belabor this, but, at some point, I hope the common council just, creates an opportunity for the public to weigh in on whether or not the public is interested in any portion of that land down there being developed. Because there are, just that question, do they want a business down there, as in a hotel? Because everyone's been talking about a hotel like it's a foregone conclusion. And, it keeps never happening. And at some point, I hope the council will just step back and say, all right, maybe we should be rethinking this. Maybe we don't need to keep planning for the hotel that never happens. Maybe we can instead step back and identify this as a beautiful area for the city to develop in a different manner. I mean, just because we talked about it 20 years ago doesn't mean we need to keep kicking the same dead horse.
Agreed, and I
I'm
think
sometimes concerned that default, or partly a hotel is a default as opposed to some analysis based on, several alternatives and what's best for the city
Absolutely.
long term.
Yeah.
And it may be the hotel, but I don't know that.
No,
I've seen some analysis of alternatives.
There
that
was one,
suggest-
there was a high SU study that was completed, I believe, in 2018.
Well, we've got to study to cover everything. The question is whether or not they're still relevant. Because the ones that I hear cited are typically pretty old. We're talking 20 years ago.
Right.
And, I'd like to have a city based on, thinking of, this decade and beyond.
I agree.
Okay. Well, with that, is there any other comment? I think you have recording of us, plenty of probably bullet points written down just to summarize that. With that said, I guess we will move on to our final two items. Okay, so item number 4.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Not a problem.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Ryan. So item number 4 and item number 5, for applications 2021-11, 20-21-12, are both applications that my firm has direct or indirect, APDA has direct or indirect involvement with. So I have to recuse myself from those, and Derek will be taking over the chair, and Loretta will be taking over acting member.
Okey dokey, so item number 4, planning board item number 2021-11, the Dolan subdivision. This is a request for a 2-lot split road subdivision separating approximately 0.47 acres from tax map parcel 207.12-3-6, and remaining lands to be merged with tax map parcel 207.12-3-5. Located at 14 Plainview Terrace, zoned R1, tax map parcel ID number 207.12-3-6, applicant is Julie Dolan, and preparer is This is a sketch plan review, I didn't add up this one, the sketch. Okey dokey, so here's an overview of the site off of Cumberland Avenue, actually Plainview Terrace off of Cumberland Avenue. 2 parcels, as part of the subdivision, 12 and 14 Plainview Terrace. Here's the zoning map showing the property is in the R1 district and also in the waterfront overlay district. And I just added the slide because it shows that the properties, neither of them are in the historical. All right, so here's a Google image of the site. So this is 12 Plainview Terrace. This is the main parcel, and then 14 is down here. So this is just the site image. Standing on Plainview Terrace, looking at 14. Here's the sketch plan. This was not prepared by a surveyor, but the applicant was informed that for the detailed plan, they would have to have a licensed surveyor. So this is the property to the north, which is Julie Dolan's property. 14 Plainview Terrace is this whole portion outlined in yellow here. The proposal is to subdivide the property so that the new lot line will be this red outline, which basically cuts the property in half. The waterfront portion of the property will be merged with the adjacent property to the north. I had a lot of comments to this because, of course, it's that sketch, so we need all of the relevant information, including, tax and parcel IDs, meets and bounds, setback lines, water, sewer mains and laterals, primary accessory structures, dimensions, etc., all the basic stuff that are required for a detailed plan review. I also had a comment requiring that easterly portion of the property must be merged with the northern property, otherwise it would create a landlocked parcel. Obviously, we need a zoning table with zoning information for the R1 district and the waterfront overlay district. What else do I have here? Just a comment, a basic comment about the city chamberlain confirming project parcels of delinquent any tax obligations. I asked for information in regards to any easements that may exist on the property. They did provide a copy of the deed showing that there actually is a waterfront easement access. Water and sewer didn't have any comments, building inspector didn't have any comments. Municipal lighting had no comments, emergency services had no comments. We did review secret part one, determined this to be an unlisted action. I don't really have any other questions, so I'll hand it over to Aaron.
No, I think Melina sums up pretty quickly. I mean, basically, the daughter owns the lot that's highlighted in yellow. She's looking to subdivide her property and give her father, basically a little more beachfront access because of the shape of his lot. He really doesn't have any real access to the lake. So pretty simple split merge. It's just a lawn area. There's no improvements being proposed. There's no new buildings, no new services. It's basically the, lakefront rear yard portions of it are being merged with her father's property to the north. So a very simple, straightforward subdivision. The owner put together this application and will comply with Melina's checklist for, typical subdivision mapping and get that into you for final approval.
I have one quick question, Aaron. I guess the southerly portion could be subdivided, that piece, there's a 25-foot down there. I assume that she was gonna retain 25 feet.
Yeah, I believe, it's my understanding, right, that she is keeping 25 feet for herself for access, correct?
As
So it's,
an actual part of the land or just a right of way?
As the actual
sorry?
part of the land.
So it'll be
Yeah.
shaped, flat shape, sort of on the side.
right, so, Melina's red outline is a little, it shows just the front, but it actually looks more, kind of flag shaped where it's the main house up at the road and a 25-foot strip that goes all the way out to the lake.
I thought that was just an easement, that's my bad.
Okay,
That wasn't clear enough.
so she'll have 25 feet of lakefront.
Correct.
Does that create a deficiency in minimum lot dimension?
No, both lots will fully comply with the zoning ordinance. Again, because it's just the lawn, that we're getting rid of, the frontage, we're not changing anything there. We're not changing the driveways or high access, anything. If you look at the aerial mapping, it's just a, open lawn area on the lakeside.
I couldn't tell what the lot dimension will be, on the.
Yeah, we'll get you, obviously, when we get you the final survey map, we'll have all the, dimensions, all the setbacks, basically the checklist that Melina has provided us. So we'll give you a full detailed plan, but our intent is fully to comply with zoning, so we would not need any variances.
Appreciate it, thank you.
So we're not trying to do everything with a minor subdivision all in one.
No, this is just a sketch approval, yeah. No, we're not there.
That's what I thought, that makes sense. So I guess, we've got a lot to look at when they come back next month, which will take care of a lot of the questions, but any other questions, I guess. At this Okay. So are we approving the
Yes.
sketch plan?
Yep, there's a resolution to approve the sketch plan and determine the minor.
Or so, is there, when they come back, is there public hearing?
Yep.
There is, okay, so the neighbors will have a chance.
Yeah, absolutely, I detailed you public hearing.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 22-11, to classify the project as a minor subdivision and approve the sketch plan relating to roads and conditions. Any conditions?
I'll second.
Motion by Eric, second by Loretta. Okay. further comments? Okay, roll call.
Rick Rich.
Yep.
Sarah Reesman.
Yes.
Jeff Rosenbaum.
Yes.
Rick Perry.
Yes.
Brett Carter.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Aaron,
Next time, let the easy ones go first.
yeah, thank you.
Okay, so moving on to item number 5, which is planning board number 2021-12, do a car wash site plan. And all that. Elena, take us through.
We have one person in the attendee list. I don't know if you're looking at this or not. I do know Harry.
Yeah, Perry's out of town, but he was gonna join by.
I don't see him. I do see a different name that I don't recognize.
If it's not Perry, then no, not from my side, at least.
But Mike is here to present or represent.
Okay, so last item we did on number 5, planning board is number 2021-12. This is the New Car Wash site plan. The request to construct a 3,600 square foot car wash facility with 4 new parking spaces and related site improvements located at 321 Cornelia Street. Area variance is required, special use permit required. Zone B2, tax map parcel ID number 207.17-2-12. Applicant is New Way Car Wash. The plan trailer is ADA. So this is the sketch plan. Okay. You have to click for me to go here. Thank you. Okay, so here's an overview of the site at 321 Cornelia. It's highlighted in yellow here. This was previously overflow parking for Bailey Ford across the street. Here's the zoning map showing the property is in the B2 district. As I said, multiple variances were required and a special use permit. Special use permit is required for an automobile service within the B2 district. An area variance is required for a drive-through business being closer than 200 feet to a residential district, the R1 district right here. An area variance for side yard setbacks, and area variance for the commercial driveway. So this project was in front of the zoning board last week. Unfortunately, I don't have quorum, so they weren't able to vote on it, so we'll have to return to the zoning board. But this is a sketch plan approval right now, so there's no need for variances. This is just the map showing the property is not registered website. All right, some site photos. This is from Google, so you can see the previous use of the site. This overflow parking to Bailey Ford. There was a little shop, really a repair shop on site. And I went out and took some photos this week. This is standing on the site looking back towards Cornelia Street. You can see it's just a large paved vacant parcel. Quite narrow. And this is spinning around 360 degrees, looking south. There is a fence here separating the B2 district and this parcel from the residential district. I took a few photos of the fence because it's in pretty bad shape, and you can actually see right through it, and it really does abut, somebody's backyard, the pool and the playground, etc. So, one of my comments reviewing this project was, there's definitely a need for really good buffer on the back end of this property, including some hardscape fence, maybe even some landscaping in addition to that, to separate the uses. Again, just another photo of the fence, and you can see it span the whole property line. All right, here's the sketch plan. So the proposal is for this 3,600 square foot building. This would be a drive-through car wash. 1-lane entry off of Route 3, splitting into 2 lanes for car stacking. Now, requirement by code is to make sure you have enough space for 15 cars to be able to stack on site, and they've shown that on this plan. So it'd be 1 way through the car wash, exit, 4 parking spaces to accommodate employee parking, because they are proposing half second story, about 1,000 square feet. And then 2 lanes exiting, 1 left-hand turn, 1 right-hand turn. That's to eliminate any potential stacking here coming out of the car wash. Improved sidewalk access along the frontage of Cornelia Street, some additional green space that you saw in the previous photos. It's all just asphalt right now, so there'll be some green space improvements. And also a mountable curb separation between the ingress and egress of the site. The county did review this project because it was in front of the zoning board, so they reviewed it in regards to the variances and special use permit that were requested. They did have one comment in regards to traffic exiting the site and turning left. They recommended that the project look further into only allowing right-hand turns out of the site, which I went on the site, I took a left-hand turn out of there, just tested and see, and I went during lunchtime, which was 12 to 1, which is the busiest time of day for Cornelia Street. I looked up traffic volume on DOT, and 12 to 1 is the highest volume of traffic on the section of the street. I didn't have any problems. I think because of the proximity to the intersection and the light here, it stopped traffic. So I had plenty of time to get out into the middle lane, and that's the whole point of that middle turn, right? You can get out there, please continue on. So although we appreciate their comments, I don't think there's an issue coming out of there. And in addition to that, there's a number of businesses closer to the intersection that all have turns. I don't think there's any restricted space turning left on Cornelia Street. It's tricky in some spaces, I'm not gonna lie, it's tricky turning left on the route sometimes. But I didn't have any issues coming on this site. Other than that, I had all the basic comments because this is at sketch, so obviously we need after building dimensions, showing setbacks, tracks on parcel IDs, topographic information, obviously all the utility information, water and sewer, electric service, and also, some minor updates to the zoning code. I think there were some references to some old code sections. We would need architectural details about, the materials being used, height, colors, aesthetic stuff. Lighting, lumen plan, planting schedule, identifying any permits that are going to be required. I have a comment here about snow stockpile, but I read in the narrative that will be removed from the site. Obviously, a truck turning plan, stormwater narrative. We had a few comments from our water resource recovery facility engineer in regards to the water system that's going to be proposed here, if they're going to be using any sort of reclaimed water system. In addition to that, providing additional information about sewer discharge characteristics, the level of treatment prior to discharge. So a lot of concerns about water quality here and what's going to be dumped into our city system. So we'll need all those details when they come back. Obviously, the buffer stuff I talked about earlier between the P2 district and the R1 district. Asking for more information about the number of employees that are going to be on site, the average hours, or the hours that they're going to be operating. I think I did see the narrative that they would be open until 8 p.m., which I think is a little bit of a concern with that backyard. But people coming in with their lights on at 8 p.m. and shining into somebody's backyard in R1 district. Also asking for, average volume on the site, how many people are getting the car wash every hour. So we didn't have any idea of any staffing issues that may occur, although we are providing the team required on site. But yeah, we did review the secret part 1, determined this to be unlisted action. And I will hand it over to Mike now.
Thank you. So Melania touched on a lot of the various thoughts and points that we've been working on in Mr. Bosch to take this from sketch to the detailed plan. I believe our surveyors are out there this week surveying, so we'll get all the property needs and bounds and topography data. As you mentioned, there's not much to pick up existing conditions. It's basically paved property line with the existing fence in the back. So we were in front of the zoning board last week. As I mentioned, one of the members had to recuse himself, so we didn't proceed with the vote. We'll go in front of them again next month. But essentially, we have abutting the residential district. The plan is one of the other variances we've requested is relief from the 8-foot maximum height fence. We're proposing potentially a 10-foot fence along here for screening of any automobile lights. And then we would probably drop down here and do a 6 or 8 foot fence along this side property line as the parking area from the restaurant adjacent can be fairly busy too. So we wanted to have a screen, a fence screen between those two properties. Essentially, the function of the site will be, as Melina pointed out, to enter on the single entry drive. We do have 18 spaces for staffing, which exceeds the required 15 spaces. Honestly, this site couldn't have laid itself out any better. Mr. Buck's been looking for a site for a while for a third car wash, and he currently operates 2 within the city. And this site pretty much works out in terms of it's long and narrow. He's got a long and narrow building. Long and narrow gives you plenty of space for incoming cars to stack. These would be automated pay stations with control gates, and then these would be the cars that have entered through the gate. It's roughly a minute, 45 seconds to a minute for a car to go through the tunnel of the car wash. So he can process between 60 and 80 vehicles an hour at the fastest rate. That doesn't mean that's what he has to do, but that's just if everyone's coming in one after another. It could be 60 to 80 vehicles an hour. Now, what that means is we have 30 feet from the front of the building to the sidewalk. That's room for 3 vehicles exiting to turn left and go right. So in reality, I understand the county's concerns, but at 1 minute per vehicle, that gives you up to 3 minutes before the cars are, full behind you to turn. That's a lot of time to make an exit move for 3 minutes. So with the light cycle at the adjacent street, which is controlled, we've checked with PMLD, it's controlled by the Aldi's driveway and then the street across from Cornelia Street. So because of the continuous traffic from Aldi's and the neighbors, that light's going to be changing. So I really don't feel that the county is concerned in turning left all that warranted. As you saw in the photos, and as you can see in the aerial of the existing conditions, that whole stretch of Route 3 or Cornelia Street is basically paved sidewalks from one property to another. So we're going to use this opportunity to clean up that whole curb line and put in a true sidewalk with green space behind it. So currently the site's deficient in open space. Will achieve compliance with open space with the site plan. So again, it seems like a good use for the redevelopment of this parcel as we can bring a non-compliant property into compliance. The other variance is side yard setback, which Rick, you could probably explain this one to me, but it's either 0 feet or it's 12 feet. So we don't really want to build on the property line and not be able to have Mr. Buck maintain it. So we've set the building off 4 feet to get him enough width to construct his footings and the roof eaves and maintain the gutters and all that for the so hence needing that variance. But so we touched on the capacity of the car wash. The office space is really just for Mr. Buck and 2 employees. There'll be about 3 employees. You had asked how many employees. There'll be about 3 on the shift. And what that means is typically at least 2 people down below helping customers through the system. So there's going to be no dryers, no exterior vacuums. So really you're in and out of the site. Some other car washes, everyone's different, but some other have the vacuum stations. This will not. So it'll really be, come through, walk your car and exit. So the front parking spaces are really for the staff. And we'll utilize a mountable curb between the 2. I believe you're probably familiar. The Taco Bell down the road has one, which allows extra width, but still helps to delineate. We'll probably detail it to be painted like safety yellow. So that'll allow delivery vehicles to come in and offload, the soaps and the other operations materials. So we're working with Mr. Buck to create the building plan. So when we come back in front of you, we'll have building exterior elevations. cumbersome and troublesome in the long run, so basically, the wash water will all go into the city's sewer system. They'll help clear out the restaurants down the pipeline, so we'll win on that. Yeah, I think I touched on as many of the points that I could remember. You have to answer any questions?
I'm not sure that I figured out yet exactly where that is. Can you help me out with it?
The property?
Yeah.
Yep. So,
Next one?
I may have a map, I can go back to you.
Yeah,
It's
just
like Aaron's and Boyle. Aaron's,
Frankfurt, yeah.
well, yeah, Aaron's is 2 lots over, and then there's this building, which I'm not sure what that's.
Thank you.
Right,
This
so
one?
we're right here, and it's a little deceiving because this was a building that once upon a time was here. I think it was demolished within the last couple of years. Yes.
It's on the south side, right? Have the neighbors who are going to be adjacent, have they been contacted?
Yeah, so they were all notified because the zoning board was a public hearing,
Right.
so everyone within 500 feet was notified. No residential abutters came or attended via Zoom. A gentleman from the car wash across the street attended. That was the only people with public comment. Mr. Buck has reached out to his main abutters. So in this property, he has spoken with this abutter who is directly behind about just the fact that he was looking to fix the fence and everything, and he didn't get any negative response from the abutter. So yeah, in terms of that adjacency to the residential district, it's not actually just drive-through businesses, it's all the commercial businesses. So the zoning board has had to do special use permits for all of those commercial properties along.
Like, you mentioned the car wash across the street, and maybe this is more of the zoning feasibility question, but I mean, has the applicant done a feasibility study on the need for another car wash across the street?
Well, yeah, so he has, Mr. Buck operates the 2 other in town here, and so, yeah, so he's, as he told us, he's been looking for a spot on Route 3 in the city for quite a while, and then, of course, with the Ford dealership change, this became available. So he, I think, far better than I understand the need for it. And to be frank, as I always try to be, the gentleman from the opposing car wash is clearly worried about losing some business, but unfortunately, some of the negative thoughts of this site or any other is because of vehicles stacking off the property, which is experienced at that adjacent site. So I think, the orientation of this site leading itself to having a driveway of a couple hundred feet before you even get to the back entrance of the building leans itself towards this use quite well.
Yeah, it's interesting noting all of the new car dealerships that are popping up, Nissan on Route 3, Ford on Route 9, now all the accessory services to those car dealerships are now popping up.
Right.
Well, you're gonna be able to get a haircut there as well.
That's right.
You know,
Yeah.
45.
Yeah.
I don't believe Mr. Buck is
You got it now?
I don't know why.
You did go good. I thought I could,
Mike, I have another question about snow removal.
Yep.
You saw somewhere in there that they may shut down for 2 hours in a large snow event and then remove all the snow. I mean, what's
Yeah, so Mr. Buck's Margaret Street property is almost identical in nature to this property in terms of it's a narrow lot. You drive past the building and then you back through the building and out. And so he operates that very similar to the way he'll operate this in that, when we're getting a foot of snow, no one's washing their car. So he could just shut down and haul away, load the snow and haul it away to keep clear, because obviously in that line of business, if you've got icy driveways, it's not a good thing. So, yeah, so his intent is to remove the snow from the site and not store anything on site.
as far as, trucks, delivery trucks and things like that accessing the site, I'm assuming there's not going to be any tractor trailers or anything?
Right, now, and I'll have to discuss with Mr. Buck what he gets for deliveries at his other property, but right, it would probably be no different than your normal, FedEx truck type of vehicle.
Which I'm assuming they're gonna have to pull in, mount the curb, and then pull into one of the parking spaces?
Correct, yeah, we anticipate they'll do that, and then they'll back up. And actually, if you go back to the site plan. Yeah, so, and then they'll have space for the back and leave, so, we don't really see that as a time, but I'm sure he's going to be delivery, not peak times, so it shouldn't overlap. I mean, really, the peak times are mornings when people are going to work, or in the afternoon when leaving work, or very down the weekend.
On a site plan, do we typically require like truck turning, something like this? I mean, or will that, are you planning on?
Yeah.
adding-
Yep, so we'll, once we get the survey back and all our boundaries and everything dimensionally is tied down, we'll do the turning patterns for the next. So you'll see that here when we do.
Okay, good. Then that made me think of something else as far as a dumpster. Will that be?
No, we don't anticipate using those. So essentially, this whole half will be the tunnel. And then this part is for the equipment, which is actually far bigger than the equipment actually takes up. So he'll have space in there to store and, whether he uses a rolling cart, maybe when he takes out or trash comes or what.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's actually quite a bit of surplus indoor storage space.
Okay. Any other questions?
The only question I had, Mike, was the curb cut here is 80% of the lot width.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was limited, but just throwing that out there as a question.
Yeah, so I forget honestly if you only had that on there, but that is one of the variance requirements, so it's sort of twofold. One is there's a ratio of your curb cut to your frontage, and then there's also a maximum 30-foot width for driveway. So we're at 33 feet wide for the driveway, which is essentially just 3 11-foot lanes. And then that's based on a 1.5 to 1 taper across the sidewalk, which is what for DOT typical. That puts us a little bit over the allowable curb cut. So that is one of the variance requests. If they really feel it necessary, we can certainly shrink it down to 3 10-foot lanes. It's one of those things right now, it's fully paved and a broken up curve, so we were just trying to keep the width as flexible as possible for the vehicle turning and sight lines is, the vehicles that are really moving. Everyone's been up and down Route 3 or some of the driveways get really narrow. So we look at it and we're like, well, we're taking a completely paved thing, we're making it sort of a best of both worlds, but let's not make it so narrow that you create those congestion points down.
Makes sense.
Okay. Any other thoughts from the board? All right, so this is just at sketch for your review. So we don't need to do seeker until next time. And we're essentially just approving the ideas that we're seeing here. So then we have a motion for resolution number 2021-12.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2021-12 to approve sketch plan concept application and related materials with any conditions as noted within the discussion, and authorize the applicant to proceed to a detailed preliminary plan review.
Okay, motion by Reg. Second by Kurt. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call.
Lori Richmond,
Yes.
Sarah Bernhardt,
Yes.
Rick Perry,
Yes.
Brett Carter,
Yes.
Kurt Irving.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it for the items on the agenda. We took care of other business at the beginning. Is there any other business? Is working on. Yeah, I guess it's up to Jim to close it. Yeah.
Is there anyone on?
No,
All right, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Reg, second by Rick. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Same space that we were in. I know,
One, yeah.
Enjoy your vacation.
My work.